Yay, there we go. Everything's loaded in. Wonderful. Hello, everyone. Welcome to August. Welcome to another live stream of Christian von Carmian's. And today we're continuing what we started last week. Predictions for 11th edition. But this time, rather than going over some of the more Horus Heresy aspects, we're looking at not the rules that could be, based on what we want, but more the rules as they're likely to be, with a lot of the influence from Age of Sigmar. Age of Sigmar has been a very big influence on 40k, and vice versa. So we can see what they're doing in this edition of Horus Heresy, and this edition of Age of Sigmar, and see what they're going to do in the 40k. Do I need to be closer to the microphone? Yes, that is better. Good. Hello. People are going to be coming in. Excellent. That's what we like to see. I've pinged the Discord so people know who's live and where. I've even got a notification myself that tells me I am live on my own channel. That's good. It's good to know. I'm on the TV streaming like this on a news channel. Yeah, well, I had heard that like the second most popular device, half of the people watch me on phones, which is odd in itself. Then 30% of people watch me on a laptop. Then there's an increasing number that watch me on TV, like 15 to 20%. And most people get their news through the YouTube, if not Twitter and whatever. Yes. 11th edition should remove detachments, instead makes unit-specific stratagems. I like detachments as an alternate way of doing sub-factions, because previously you would get a sub-faction rule, and then some other sub-faction rule as well, and then it maybe changes what's battle line and what's not, and that would also dictate your paint scheme, which was not the great aspect of it. But there you go. Making stratagems unit-specific, I think they'll make some more army-specific stratagems, as we're seeing lots of them are like, hey, Arm of Contempt, that could be anywhere for the army. Just put it in the army rules rather than putting in each detachment. I think we will mention something like stratagems on units, as we're looking at the Age of Sigmar-ing part. Ooh, customizing sub-factions and things. I don't know about that. When you could customize your sub-faction, it was either the best you can do is worse than one of the default ones, which was often the case, or it ended up being, yeah, there is one way to do it, and that's it. If you're doing custom Eldar factions, you want to have blade something or other, which was basically lethal hits on all of your shuriken weapons, because you're Eldar, you're going to have shuriken weapons somewhere. And maybe also do something related to flying around, unless you wanted to go Siam Han. Or yeah, I think it's Siam Han. It's pronounced Siam Han. For the Battle Sisters, you were probably fine with one of the 9th edition sub-faction detachments, especially Bloody Rose. That was very popular in 9th edition. You got an extra point of armor penetration on all combat weapons and all pistols. So Battle Sisters firing pistols are good. Battle Sisters stabbing people with tiny knives at AP -1. Seraphim firing bolt pistols or hand flamers with AP -1. And then you get into combat with Repentia and it's like AP -3 chainswords. It was very nasty. So you would just pick that one. Or you could do your own sub-faction which focused on like melter weapons, and then you got a bonus to your melter weapons, which is maybe the one you needed, but not so much in 9th edition. The average toughness of a tank was like 7. Samhan? Interesting. I don't think we'll do alternating activations. I can't see there being that big a shift. 40k's rule sets change very, very gradually over the many, many years. What about detachment-specific weapon gear like Legions? No, I don't think there'll be any more support for kit bashing. If you look at the way this edition has gone, it's much more gone through the idea of having, this is what's in the box, this is what you can make. And if you look at Horus Heresy, part of the very big, I don't want to play Horus Heresy, and stockists are like, I'm going to sell the core set and then nothing else of Horus Heresy, is because they got rid of so many units that you make through kit bashing. They want to Legacies of Horus Heresy, or Legacies, some kind of Legends document, essentially. But you can still play it in all the tournaments, so there's no real difference between it and any other rules, except you pay for one and the Legends rules are free. Because if tournaments use both, there's no difference. I suppose it's, you can't just buy this unit in the box. They've very much panicked themselves over the Horus Heresy and what we're doing with Legends. So that Horus Heresy document is expected next week. It was meant to be out by the end of July. They have put an article out today where they're like, here's a Saturnine Dreadnought or Terminator. How about we just also mention, yeah, the thing you're expecting is not coming till later. Because they're in trouble with the community. There may not be that much uptake on Horus Heresy. So they're hoping that maybe this can mean that they'll put more thought into Legends in 40k and be like, okay, we better make damn sure our Legends document is stacked and full and complete and has everything. Then we won't die horribly. Do I have any insider information on 11th edition? I have talked to people who write for Games Workshop that some of that is rules. But they know less about what's happening than I do, which is a weird thing to think of. Because they can be working on a project and then it just gets completely dropped. Or something else takes over and they'll be switching between different things. I'm trying to think of all this. Oh yeah, like the Battle Sisters. Like, oh yeah. There's a Battle Sisters detachment. It's coming. It's going to be released. And then it wasn't. And I was like, what happened to it? Like, well, I heard it had been done. I heard there was like nerfs reversed and things. And oh, well, maybe they didn't do that. Or maybe they did do that, but they want to do it later. And yeah, it's an unusual one. So I can know some stuff that's going on. It's just not necessarily accurate because Games Workshop changes up internally. But next time, there should be a Sisters detachment. Because there'll be 3 more detachments for the different detachments they've done, because they did a bunch of them in December. Then in the March balance, they did 3 more. Then in the June balance, they did another 3. So we're expecting, we've done Custodes, we've done Space Wolves. Okay, they haven't actually done that many. They've done Chaos Space Marines, they've done Dark Angels. I think they've done Space Wolves. They might not have done Space Wolves. Tau, I think they've done Tau. And then we know that they've done Orks. We think. Or was Mordaka in December? I think Mordaka was in December. Okay, there's a lot to do. Did they do an extra Grey Knights one? No, I don't think they did. I could just look, but I'm not going to. We're waiting on Battle Sisters and Genestealer Cult. So next time. Maybe next time. Clear, well-defined, unambiguous rules? No. I've been reading through the Old World rules and the Old World FAQ because they had an update like a month or so ago to be 1.5, and that is so rulesy confusing. I've been playing Age of Sigmar as well a lot more to get ready for this video, and also because Age of Sigmar is pretty fun. And so much of that is very ambiguous. Yeah. New Celestians revealed at Nova Open, trust? When's Nova Open? Oh, Nova Open is the end of this month. I don't know if they do a reveal so soon. I mean, they might. If they reveal the next Kill Team thing at that point, won't that be before we've actually got the Deathwatch Tomb World? Because I don't think the Deathwatch Tomb World is meant to be out until after that. Like the start of September, the new Deathwatch will be out. It could be. It could be. But yeah, I could totally see that either at this upcoming reveal, if there is a reveal with a Nova Open, that doesn't necessarily mean there will be. They don't do every tournament. It may be the one after that. And then we'll have it announced. And then by Christmas, we may get some Battlesys to Celestians. Which would be nice. Oh, they do tend to announce things to damage control a leak? We can just wildly speculate and then be upset at them when our wild speculation doesn't meet reality. That's fair and fine, isn't it? That's how so much of the news works. People, like a political party, say, we're going to do something like this. And then there's news speculation. They're like, okay, we're pretty certain as a news community, you're going to do this thing. And then they don't do that thing. And they're like, why did you lie? Well, that's something that happens in real life. Ah, thank you, Curtis. Really interested in how they handle Tau Empire. It's one of the factions they don't know how to write for. It's the lore of the Tau Empire has been a bit weird. I would say it's a bit weird. We've had assorted... Well, they knew what they were doing at the start. They're like, okay, we've got the Kroot. We've got the Kroot, and we've got the first sphere's expansion. We go up to third sphere. Makes sense. We've got the Vespid in there as well. And after that, we're like, don't know really what to do with these. Okay, wormhole to the other side of the galaxy. But everyone died, but not everyone died. But it's a big, drastic thing. And now they have a god, but they don't want to have a god. So they blame the auxiliaries, and then they kill all the auxiliaries. But then they decide that's bad because don't do some genocides. So now there's the fifth sphere, which is based around the fourth sphere, which is only like 6 planets, which is not a very big sphere of expansion. I mean, what's that? The average afternoon for a rogue trader? And then they've had like, oh, the Death Guard are there. The Death Guard are going to mess them up. There's a Death Guard fleet coming. And the Tau killed it like off screen. I don't think they let people who do good Games Workshop like library novels write the lore of 40k. They have different lore writers. Hey, there's the Grey Knights apparently having a secret order to slap the Emperor back on his throne if he ever gets up. But we don't know if it's such a secret order that maybe the Grey Knights themselves don't even know it. And therefore it has no impact on the plot whatsoever. That could happen. Oh, yeah, they've also shown off the Saturnine Terminators. That is the piece that goes onto the top of the shoulder. So you have the shoulder, and then you have 4 more pieces that go on top of that shoulder, so that you make an even bigger shoulder for your Saturnine Terminator. That's kind of crazy. Big shoulder thing. Oh, if you wanted to get the Horus Heresy starter set, I know it's maybe a bit off with the weapons and the kind of things you get inside, but a Relic Contemptor Dreadnought has pretty good rules for a Saturnine Dreadnought, if you want to use the new Saturnine Dreadnought in 40k. It'll be bigger, but don't worry about that. Because the rules of 40k with terrain, it's ruins or nothing just to make the rules work well enough. So you'll be out of line of sight, or you'll in line of sight regardless. Or maybe there's a hedge. But it doesn't matter how big the hedge is, you're going to be obscured from it even in part. Like, whether it's up to your shin or up to your ankle, you get the benefit of cover. Big Death Guard. Oh, yeah, the lore generally has been put back. They did a lot of lore for 8th edition, they did some lore for 9th edition. But if you think of 9th edition, we started with Pariah Nexus stuff, and we haven't really expanded from there. Then at the start of 10th edition, okay, we have the 4th Tyrannic War, however it's Leviathan again, and nothing is expanded beyond that. It's just, Tyranids are coming! Again! Oh boy, it's like, what do we do? Oh, we're going to go back to Dinosaur Island, and where they're going to clone some dinosaurs, and maybe release the dinosaurs, and maybe the military wants to use the dinosaurs. We're never going back to that Dinosaur Island. Oh wait, there's a different island. Let's go to that Dinosaur Island. And they just keep going. the Imperium is already fractured. It's in 2 bits, which is meant to sort of represent East and West Roman Empire. So that if they wanted to go even crazier, they could have the main part of the Imperium fall and just have the outer edge, which is like the Eastern Roman Empire. I can't see them doing that, though. Because the Imperium is like here's the big structure of the galaxy. That would be like saying everyone in the Star Wars Republic is destroyed, or the Star Wars Empire just loses all of its worlds. What's left? What is there? Horus will come back with a catch and kill team to win. That'd be nice. That would be nice. Forests exist in 40k. They do have rules in the core rulebook that you can use if you so wish. You used forest rules in a game. Good. Use them. It's the benefit of cover. But you can shoot through them out one side and in one side and out the other. Yeah. Are the Tyranids the Mongols? Maybe they're the Visigoths. Yeah, maybe that. And then the Orks, I don't know, are they the Parthenons? Parthia. A big, like, other big empire that's always constantly fighting the Romans. Or are they the Gauls? Just all over the place. Maybe they should just do something with the lore. I know we felt like we were going kind of fast with 8th edition, and it's like, okay, the galaxy is in half, a bunch of Space Marines are gone, okay, we have Primaris Space Marines to replace them, the Necrons are getting up, and Necrons are in a civil war now, and they don't care about their gods so much. Tower expanding, apparently. Genestealer cults everywhere, absolutely everywhere. Chaos is getting through, but not that far. Let's not get them too far. They've gone from Cadia to Nakmud, which is like the next service station along the road. And then they'll stop. Oh, and Angron's back, and also well, not Angron in 8th edition. It was like, oh yeah, Guilliman's back. And also Magnus is back. There was a lot happening in 8th edition, which was maybe too dramatic. They want to catch up with their model range to the stuff that's happening, figure out what is happening to all of the different factions, other than make a vague reference to the Cicatrix Maledictum and call it a day. Actually think about it more. So when we get a new edition of 40k, which should be next year, 1 year from now, and even if you think 10th edition is bad, I bet you'll come back to peek in at 11th edition to see what is different. I am expecting my views to go up around the start of the edition as more people come in and people who left come back. I like 10th edition, but 11th edition is there to fix some of the problems and introduce a whole load of new problems. Will it be an index edition though? I think so. In the last live stream, which was last Friday, I think so, because although we have seen them do editions in pairs, 6th and 7th, 8th and 9th, those are our only 2 data points really. Because 3rd, 4th and 5th were all compatible, and it was unusual to get a codex for every faction. Like Dark Eldar got a codex in 3rd edition, got a little revival in like 5th edition. Same codex really. There was like, yeah, so you got like 2 codices across those 3 editions unless you were Space Marines. If it's indexes, your friend that only plays Drukhari will despair. Their codex is expected, let's think. Imperial Knights need to come out, Votann need to come out. I think Drukhari are going to be last this edition. What if 11th edition doesn't happen for a long time, they just do a mid-edition relaunch? I can't see any better benefit to being like Old Worlds 1.5, where they change up the rules. No, because they want a big box set. They want to say, okay, this edition is going to fix all the problems, because people will believe them. Think back to 10th editions, like the rollout to 10th edition. It was, okay, we see there's a problem with characters. We're going to fix the problem with characters. Okay, we see there's a problem with rerolls. We're going to sort out rerolls. And they didn't. And it was like, oh, well, this is going to be simpler. Well, it's a bit simpler. A bit. But they can do that whole ramping up again. We'll get onto rerolls again. There was meant to be far fewer rerolls. There are not really fewer rerolls. Yeah, 40k is a constant stream of updates. If they did, well, we also did really big core rules updates, like we had the whole pivoting thing. That fundamentally changed movement for a lot of units. That's just a 1.5. So it wants to come with a new starter set that they can sell, because it'll be sort of at a discount, and then they get more people in, and then they have a new player base to take on the journey. And they can say, hey, you liked playing Space Marine 2? How about you play an actual Space Marine? Lore goes forward and the threat is revealed to be underwhelming. Well, yes. Yes. Everything is about to destroy them until two other factions team up to stop it. It's the same thing in, well, Old World, yeah? Chaos is ignored until Chaos does a grand invasion, and then the High Elves, the Wood Elves, the Empire, the Dwarves all team up and fight it back. Or the last time where they didn't, and then also the Orks helped them, which was weird. Then everything broke. And the Dark Elves helped them, because they did resolve the succession crisis. Yeah, Old World should have really continued into lore. I mean, it had a lot of lore that was good and interesting. You like the pivoting thing? That's fine. I have nothing super against the pivoting thing. It was just odd to have such a big change so late in the edition. Or at such a time, yeah. Every threat is going to be underwhelming, because you can't ever have it that the Imperium dies. You can't have the Emperor die. The Cicatrix Maledictum was about as nasty as it could get, and that's about it. So we're now in the last year of 10th edition of 40k, and at the very least in the last 6 months, if not the whole year, this is where they're going to test out more ideas for next edition, like Arcs of Omen at the end of 9th edition, so that would be like spring to summer 2023. That's when they did things like dropping force organization charts in preparation for 10th edition, where we don't have force organization charts. You have to have a warlord. That's it. As long as you have a warlord, you're fine. And it's a maximum of 3 of anything, or 2 of anything at 1,000 points. That's really it. Getting to do a 360 spin anytime I need to swing around terrain's a great addition. Yeah, I can see that. It's fun. Yes. So that was something that Arcs of Omen did. A lot of the Arcs of Omen things became 40k rules. The Imperial Guard, they got their Codex around January, February 2023. The Imperial Guard tanks uniquely could fire while in combat. And then in 10th edition, we got the Big Guns Never Tire rule, which was basically that, but for every faction. So from next January, look at 40k rules, look at the campaign books, the Codex rules, and we can see what will become main rules. I keep picking up on things as the edition goes along, like, oh, they could introduce this into this edition of 40k, if not next edition. I do not expect the Psychic phase to come back. It was very much something that they ported over from Warhammer Fantasy at the time. Then it became, okay, just do a leadership test to see if the spell happens. Then they tried a whole, okay, you generate so many warp dice. They're called something like warp dice. And then you got to roll a certain number of them to try and cast spells, depending on the level of wizard you had, and your opponent rolled to deny. It was an interesting time for a bit, but for quite a few of the psychic things, it sometimes meant Thousand Sons got to play for a bit, Grey Knights got their moment, Necrons, Sisters, Tau just had to sit back and let it happen. Hope they steal the rule writer who did the Old World Magic for 40k psychic rules. Well, Old World Magic, as it is now, is almost identical to how it used to be. I think 7th edition, 8th edition, Although they done 1.5 where you add your wizard level to the dice roll and you need to beat a certain number, but now you only add half your wizard level. So there's not really a benefit of taking a level 4 wizard, because they're equal to a level 3 wizard in spells. Psychic tests could come back. Nah, I don't know. I don't think they will. I think they're happy enough with the psychic keyword, because so many of 40k's psychic powers and abilities are guns. At which point, just give it a range profile, shoot it in the shooting phase. There doesn't need to be a separate time when you roll it. And then, oh wait, I have this stratagem that works against mortal wounds. Make sure it's available in the psychic phase. Or some of them will be like, oh, we only do this stratagem in the psychic phase, making it useful for any time transport explodes. Bring back equipment cards. They also had equipment cards in 2nd edition with the vortex grenades. Yeah. It's okay if you don't know all of the things they used to do in the past. If you have what seems like a good idea, then I can say, yeah, they tried that and it didn't work because of this, or it did work because of this. You'd love blast templates and flame templates. When I mentioned it as, hey, here's some things of the past, the blast templates were the least liked part. Random deep strike, people liked. That came back in the Nakmud Gauntlet Crusade. So they could do something a bit like that. The problem we saw with Nakmud is it was very powerful if you had Grey Knights, Demons, or Genestealer Cult. Even Battle Sisters playing lots of Seraphim, and you're dropping 3 inches away from someone. No penalties, then shooting, and then charging if you wanted. There has to be a better way to scatter blast templates. I don't think there ever has been. And Horus Heresy still has blast templates. And Legions Imperialis has blast templates, I think. And Titanicus certainly has blast templates. All of those sort of work. But in 40k, it's a lot of arguments. And then base size starts to matter again. And base size really doesn't matter that much in 40k. Unless there are blast templates for who is hit. Get artifact back so you'd have both enhancements and artifact? I think I'm okay with just one. Yeah, it was fine. It was fine in like 6th, 7th, 8th edition, 9th edition, where you could have 1 or 2. And maybe have, in like 9th edition, spend a command point before the game to upgrade a little character with one. And that's how you get Celestian Superior Aveline. Which Crusade book are the Vortex Grenades in? Is it in the core rules? Or is it in the Tyrannic War? Don't know. Scattering, people miss. Armor facings, people sort of miss. But it's okay on an Imperial vehicle. Or like the Goliath truck for the Genestealer Cult. Trying to figure out where the front and side is on a Wave Serpent or any other Eldar vehicle or Tau vehicle, it gets much harder. Put Horus Heresy 2 into 40k. No, I don't know. We could see that with this next edition, they do like a really minor change of the edition to be compatible with 10th edition's Codex rules. I think that is a bad idea. Because those 2nd editions of the edition, like 7th edition, 9th edition, they were really bloated with the rules. Because the rules were even more of a mess, as they have to be sort of compatible with 8th edition, and if they're not compatible with 8th edition or they're near pointless, they still continue. Like, the Imperial Guard were using their 8th edition Codex for most of 9th edition. And one of the regiments, which is like a detachment or sub-faction you could have, was the Mordians/Praetorians, where you could fire, overwatch, and hit on a 5+. That is fine in 8th edition, where everyone fired overwatch all of the time. Anytime you're getting charged, you fired overwatch. In 9th edition, it was tied to a stratagem, so one unit from your army can do overwatch. At which point, army-wide 5+ overwatch is near pointless. So I think it'll be a bigger change. I think the points values will be closer to what the end of 9th edition of 40k had, with points for certain weapons. Have I mentioned this already before? I sort of feel I have mentioned it last week. Oh yeah, I did a video on it previously. I have done a video on that. So things like a plasma pistol for a palatine, that might cost 5 points, because they seem to do things in values of 5 now. So your army is like 400 points, if like every 5 points was actually 1 point. That's how you get to 2,000 points. Everything's in values of 5. Which is not something they need to stick to, but they have so far. You have like granularity as an option already. So they could do weapons like this is a 2-point weapon, this is a 1-point weapon. Yeah, something like that is perfectly viable. Because the end of 9th edition, not for every faction, but for most factions, then you had, hey, yeah, you're doing this special weapon, so a multi-relic costs more, but a heavy bolter doesn't cost anything extra. Maybe the last few codices of this edition have been built with 11th edition in mind. Well, it wouldn't be like Agents or Sisters or Genestealer Cult, because they were barely any different to solving the problems of their initial index release. Wonder if they'll address games being too long? Maybe if they get rid of some of the rerolls, it might. It might. Ooh, a ruling Imperialist that could be interesting in 40k, rerolling successful saves. That's maybe a bit horrifying. 40k is lethal enough. Unless they say, okay, we need the game to be even faster, let's double down on instantly killing things. When a unit attacks another unit, that other unit dies. I think that's going to be really boring though. But cursing someone to have rerolls of all their successful saves, I don't like that. So I hope they address that games are too long. I've noticed that games are too long. Yeah, 2,000 points. Last 2,000 point game I did, we did 4 turns and there was still like 6 or 7 units left. So we just guessed the victory points at the end. Which is a bit annoying. It's really annoying. Will they bring back force organization charts? I really doubt it. I think they're quite happy with how it's worked without force organization charts, just saying maximum 3 of anything and up to 6 of battle line and dedicated transports, which when you think about the force organization chart is what the force organization chart was, although it was only 2 HQ, with the reduction that you don't need to have 2 battle line / troops units to make an army, because it was a feel bad. That was like a tax. And then 8th edition, it was like, I'm playing Space Marines, therefore I take 2 squads of 5 scouts. Okay, great. Now I can actually make my army. Others didn't have that option. Oh, you're playing Battle Sisters? Well, put 20 Battle Sisters in your army list. Oh, you're playing like 500 points? Nah, that's pretty much your army. Hopefully they tone down Torrent Overwatch. I kind of hope they would. Yeah, hitting on a 4+ instead of auto hit. That would work. That would work. Templates do slow the game down, and they're okay in skirmish games like in Infinity, where you have, you know, one model and then maybe it scatters onto another model instead. Maybe. Unpredictability is supposed to be part of what it feels like it's missing. Yeah, playing Age of Sigmar, a lot more unpredictable. Playing Old World, and suddenly you get a spike in the rolls, and oh, damn, you killed 4 instead of 2. Oh, that means my unit takes a leadership test. Oh, that means I'm running. That's where the little bits can matter. In 40k, you have so many rerolls, and like remove armor penetrations. It gets... I don't know. It's hard to have it... I'll talk about it in a second when I've more formulated my thoughts in the back of my head. What if charges are in the movement phase? You know, that's not a terrible idea. If we think about the average speed of 40k armies, they have gotten so much faster in the more recent editions. In, yeah, 2nd edition, you moved about 4 inches, but you could march move 8 inches. Oh, thank you. Curtis, you think Imperial Guard should take more dedicated transports than 6? Ah, yeah, Yeah, I see the thought behind that. Can have a fully mechanized army. If someone can take an all-night army, why not have a full mechanized army? Then again, there are two kinds of Imperial Guard dedicated transport. There's the Taurox and the Chimera. So unless you said those 3 Chimeras are Tauroxes instead, that may be a way around it. Otherwise, it's an awkward thing, yes. I do see that. I'm hoping they'll do something a bit more to stop, like one... Yeah, maybe we should... I don't know about Force Organization charts back. But this is the swings and roundabouts of it. You can try and stop skew lists, like entirely Knights, which is a Knight army, or entirely Tyranid Horde, but that upsets people who already have massive Tyranid Hordes, massive Knight armies, fully mechanized Imperial Guard armies. They can do one or the other. I like the idea of charging in the movement phase. Because if your unit's going to charge, you maybe don't do that much shooting anyway. And yes, speed has gone way up. We've got 8-inch move World Eaters, we've got 7-inch move Eldar, Dark Eldar, Emperor's Children. Dreadnoughts, most Dreadnoughts are now on 8-inch move instead of 6-inch move. I could see charging happening in the movement phase. They also want to tone down shooting to sort of compensate, because you're not getting a move, an advance, and a charge. Advance and charge could become charge on 3d6. It's a thought. I don't know if they'll actually do it. I do remember the build your own vehicle. Was it vehicle? Oh, let me find it. I have it saved on my computer. Go there. Vehicle design rules. Yeah, the idea was you can build your own vehicle, you can make rules for them, as long as you have exact WYSIWYG of that model, it's fine. So if you want to do a truck which has no rear and can be penetrated and blown up by lasguns, you can do that. And have it with 20 autoguns on top. As long as you have glued 20 autoguns to that model, then it's fine. Overall faction books like Horus Heresy could be a way to go. I think I'm going to get to that as an idea. Yeah. The problem with the vehicle design rules is some people were able to make something really stupid, and then they built it because they have money and lots of glue, and that really unbalanced the game for a time. Everything can be blown up by lasguns if you have enough. Not at that time. Lasguns were strength 3. Even the rear armor of the lightest vehicles was 10, and the way it worked back then is you roll a d6 and add your strength, and you need to get at least equal to get a glancing hit. So a strength 3 lasgun could never get to a 10 on a d6. I'm hoping that next edition will go back to points per model, because it's so much easier to get those last 10 points with an extra model. Having spare models is a good thing. Old World does it, and it feels satisfying. You can be partway through building and painting a squad, and the unit you play with gets bigger as you finish more models, unless you're batch painting. I've mostly moved away from that. I find it more satisfying to paint like a whole model by itself. Mostly. I'll do like all of the robes on Battle Sister unit, and then do each individual model after that. Yeah, do the initial parts and then focus on detail. There's so many details in the Games Workshop kits. If you do want something with fewer details, then there's Wargame Atlantic kits like the Grognards and the Cannon Fodder. They're great. They're pretty good. They could have rules like from Horus Heresy. I think I may have seen, in Horus Heresy 3rd edition, tanks in engagement range are not locked in combat, unless they're totally surrounded, and then they can still shoot. They could have lots of weapons with the pistol keyword, and then you get rid of the big guns never tire rule, but tanks can fire pistols and non-pistol weapons. Like heavy stubbers and other defensive weapons having pistol makes sense. Or you can fall back and still be able to shoot, because you're a tank. Big guns never tire is kind of a clunky rule that could be replaced with other rule concepts. And please merge monster and vehicle into like the behemoth keyword or something like that, so that monsters can tank shock and monsters can be affected by anti-vehicle weapons. Wargames Atlantic is where you get Catchans. Yeah, they have like an American in Vietnam. Is it also mixed with Australians in New Guinea? They have like a bunch of different ones together. Like, the French are from the Battle of Waterloo all the way to the First World War. The British are from the Zulu War all the way up to the First World War. It's an interesting one. Having a 1 unit max per 1,000 points? I don't know about that. No, I can't see them doing that. They'll want to sell too many models. What if Games Workshop got knocked on the head and suddenly 11th edition sport kiss bashing, unit customization, morale and stuff? I think we'd still complain that it's not been balanced. It's too unbalanced. People can do this crazy thing. You need to nerf half of it when in combination with other stuff. Yeah. Multiple factions in one book. That is how they did 8th edition indexes. It was like, here's the Space Marine index, here's the Imperium index, the Chaos index, and then index 1 and 2 for like Eldar stuff, and then Tyranid stuff. Keyword chonker. Yeah, that could work. Haywire wouldn't work on a Tyranid. I think it should. At least there's enough abstraction in 40k that it should. It'll mess with their brain biochemistry, which only happens to work on the big ones. Something like that. I don't think it's fair to limit epic heroes to 1500 points, because you also see them in boarding actions. You can have all of the Phoenix Lords in your boarding patrol, boarding actions game. Most of the Phoenix Lords. Right, let's talk about the Age of Sigmar-ingness of it, because that's what I want to mainly do part of today. Right, early 40k, like especially 2nd edition, was based around Warhammer Fantasy. In 2nd edition, you could march. They did weird things with heroes, were amazing. It was the Hero Hammer edition. Like your generic Battle Sister priest was absolutely smashing down Chaos Dreadnoughts with a Melter Bomb. No problem. A single Space Marine captain was taking on like 15 Orc Knobs. Things like that. It was the Hero Hammer times. And square bases were common in the early editions. The Eldar Avatar, all of the Tyranid monsters, like the Screamer Killer, the Hive Tyrant, the Zoanthrope, which was big and walking, the Biovore. These were all on square bases. Anything that's a bike or mounted, that was on a square base, or rectangle base. Age of Sigmar has then informed parts of 40k, and I want you to think of examples of the way that 40k has taken from Age of Sigmar. This is, of course, much easier if you play Age of Sigmar. Having things like characters separate from units in 8th and 9th edition of 40k came from Age of Sigmar. The command phase was added into 9th edition of 40k after the hero phase of Age of Sigmar. It's a time when you do a bunch of crazy stuff that's like the start of your turn, but we want a time for it. The start of your turn phase, essentially. Instead of using initiative, after 8th edition, they did like Age of Sigmar, and they had alternating activations in combat. 3 units are fighting, great. I'll pick a unit, then you pick a unit, then I'll pick a unit, then you pick a unit. It wasn't so much like Old World, where you say, okay, these 3 units are like touching each other in some way, so we'll do that combat next, and we start in initiative order. That is how Old World works. Age of Sigmar doesn't do initiative, 40k now doesn't do initiative. The difference is that in 40k, if you charged, you fight first. Age of Sigmar doesn't do that because it's a much more melee-focused game. Your entire army is melee, your opponent's entire army, bar like 1 unit, is melee-focused. if it was the person charging goes first, one side would win over the other very quickly. Removing points from gear options, like in Age of Sigmar. Yes, every unit has a free banner, a free unit champion, a free musician, and if you want an axe instead of a sword, great, do it. But in Age of Sigmar, the profiles are near identical. The sword will hit on a 3+ and wound on a 4+, the axe will hit on a 4+ and wound on a 3+. That's sort of equal. There may be some things that let you reroll certain hit rolls of one, or wound rolls of one, and so one may be better than the other. Or if you had more attacks, anything that crits is going to be better than something that's like higher damage. Because all of the criticals are on the hit roll in Age of Sigmar, including what we think of as like lethal hits or mortal wounds. That's all on the hit roll. If you roll a 6 to hit, you have auto-wounded and the enemy gets no save. Initiative order is better? I remember it being fun. Everyone keeps asking me, oh, did Pure Strain Genestealers fight first? And they don't. And it was okay when you had an Orc Horde charging, say, Space Marines. The Space Marines fight first with their 1 attack per model, and then the Orcs get to fight. If you do that in modern 40k, 5 Space Marines getting 15 to 20 attacks, they're hitting on 3s, they're winning on 5s, you're still killing like 10 Orcs, potentially. Let's say 6 Orcs, before the Orcs even get to fight. Yeah, potential for damage spilling over. I'll think of that as an idea. And they should, because they're Space Marines. Well, yeah, it depends if you want lore-accurate Space Marines, which are never going to happen on the in the game, because they want you to buy 50 Space Marines and that be your army, not 3. You've played Space Marine 2. 3 Space Marines can absolutely kill their way through like 1,000 points of Tyranids, as long as there's nothing too big immediately, and they have the ammunition. Bring initiative back, but if you charge you get +1 to initiative. Now you're thinking of the current old world. Depending on how far your charge is, you get bonus initiative. And I'll have to double check it before I play old world again. I think it's up to 3 inches. Like, for every 3 inches you charge, you get 1 more initiative, or for every 2 inches you charge, you get bonus initiative. Yeah, I can see that happening, if they want to bring it back. So that's how your Orcs can do a charge, and then they fight before the Space Marines. Okay. Other things they want to do. Speaking of Genestealers, have you done a review of the White Dwarf Genestealer Cult Force yet, with the Crossfire rules? Yeah, the White Dwarf Crusade rules. Yes, I have done that. That's on the channel. Let me... It has a name. I think I used a funny name. Crusade, Genestealer Cult. Yeah, Crossfire returns. New Genestealer Cult rules, Crossfire for 10th edition of 40k. That's what the video's called. That was 7 months ago, but I have done that video. Oh yeah, Furious Charge. That was a rule. +1 initiative, +1 strength. Steal Old World morale, but maybe tone it down a bit? Well, I think they're more likely to do some Age of Sigmar kinds of morale stuff. Because in Age of Sigmar at the moment, rather than taking a Battleshock test and then doing Desperate Escape tests, there is no leadership. Everyone is fearless all of the time. It doesn't matter if you're an undead skeleton, a War-infected orc, a Sigmar-ing that knows they're going to get smashed and then be reforged, Stormcast Eternal, or if you're a peasant from the cities of Sigmar. You are fearless. What they do in Age of Sigmar, when you fall back, you take D3 mortal wounds. Falling back in that edition always has a penalty. So they absolutely could abolish leadership in 10th edition, no, 11th edition. The problem then is, what do you do with commissars? Are they just a mini officer? How do you do Dark Eldar and Chaos Knights and their whole leadership shenanigans? Yeah. It's a difficult one. No, I don't think they'll do the 3-inch engagement range from Age of Sigmar, because that's been around since the start of Age of Sigmar, and we've never really pulled it into 40k. One thing they could do for charge rolls, in Age of Sigmar, you roll the charge. You don't need to declare your charge targets. They could do that into 40k, like, okay, I might charge this closer unit if I get a bad charge roll, or I might do 3 units if I get a really good charge roll. It then depends how Overwatch triggers, and if you are being the target of a charge is going to trigger some stratagems. So I don't think they'll do that, but it's an option. T3 mortal wounds never happened to me. Did the Skaven get the bonus to, like, not have the mortal wounds happen if they fall back? Because that's very Skaven-y. So many rules. I really did like 2nd edition Age of Sigmar. I sort of liked 3rd edition Age of Sigmar. One thing Age of Sigmar 4th edition does is you gain command points at the start of the turn. You lose all of your command points at the end of the battle round. So you get usually 3 at the start of a battle round. If you haven't used them by the end of the battle round, they're gone. I don't know if that's something that you think is a problem in 40k, where you can easily store up 4 command points and have a big turn of I have lethal hits and I get full rerolls and I also can pile in and I'm going to do an Overwatch there as well. Is that a problem? Is it something that they need to stop? I don't know. I don't think it's really a problem. But it's an alternate way of doing command points. I think they've done command points pretty well in this edition. They were really bad in like 8th and 9th edition, where all of your force organization, if you followed the force organization chart, you got loads of command points. And 9th edition, they said, okay, yeah, there's a problem there. It's not going too well. Actually, let's give you even more command points that last the game. One thing I almost certainly think they'll do is change wounds to mean health. Just change the word. We're used to health points from video games. Anyone coming into it will be like, what is my health? Otherwise, as you increase your wounds, you get more healthy. Whereas if you think about it in literal language, the more wounds I have, the more holes are inside of me. If you lose wounds, then they get better? It doesn't make sense. So calling it health is fine. Then there's no confusion over the palatine and what a successful wound is, or the assigned wound steps, although it's actually... It's not called the assigned wound step, it's called the allocate attack step, which should be renamed to assigned wound step. Because at that point you're not allocating attacks to units, you've already rolled the dice. You're allocating successful wounds. Oh yeah, spending 5 command points in a single turn doing Host of Ascension. I see that, I've done that. Maybe 3 is the most I usually go because I want some spare. But yeah, it's very easy to store up your command points for that. Genestealer Cult need it for that. I don't know if anyone else does. Can other factions survive without it? They might be able to. My screen right? There we go. There are not a lot of rerolls in Age of Sigmar. There are an absurd number of rerolls in 40k. Characters give you full rerolls. Oh, we have the Genestealer Cult Primus, full rerolls to hit. Dark Eldar Archon, full rerolls to hit. Index Canoness, full rerolls to hit. There was one character in every faction that gave you full rerolls to hit. And there's lots of reroll 1s, or in certain situations, full rerolls to wound. If they don't know what to do with a detachment, they'll say, hey, every unit gets reroll hit rolls of 1. They did that with the Tunneling detachment for the Tyranids. They did it for the Tempestus detachment for the Imperial Guard. Yeah, having a wound roll and a wounds characteristic is needlessly confusing. Yeah. If you successfully wound someone, you pass that second roll, the roll after the hit roll. You don't have to have reduced the enemy's wounds characteristic. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's one of the Eldar detachments does it as well. There's a lot of rerolls. And if there's lots of rerolls, full rerolls to hit, because of the rerolls, you can only do well. If you miss, and mostly miss, that would be bad, but rerolls offer the counter to make it more average. If you initially rolled well, you roll well. Rerolls can only mean you spike high, and so 40k is very lethal. And yes, the Space Marine Army rule. Full rerolls to hit. Lots of rerolls. Then as we got more detachments, more and more things give you rerolls. We could do with a glossary of terms in the core rulebook. I think we already have that with the rules commentary, but Age of Sigmar has that in the main book. And then at the back, you can just look up the word and say, okay, yeah, before this tells you it happens, or just after, things like that. Or how do we resolve sequencing? It says, okay, the person whose turn it is decides which sequence things that happen at the same time get resolved in. Things like multiplications, then divisions, then additions. How does that all work? It can tell you that in the back of the book. And they can sell that as, we are slimming down the game. You will not need as many PDFs anymore. And that's something that will get people back into the game. They will do a more legalese kind of rulebook. What really turned me off 4th edition of Age of Sigmar at the start was opening it and seeing, if you check sub-faction 3 and paragraph 12, you will find that 14.1 takes precedence over 15.2b. And having come from a background where I did a lot of that in my day-to-day life, I was just like, nope, not at the fun time. This is fun time. This is weekend. Apart from the times I'd work weekends. But this is not what I want to see. Yeah. Would they ever dare go back to a D8, D12, 10 system? I really don't think so. No. They initially had it in 1st edition and 2nd edition because they expected anyone who was playing that game of 40k to also play D&D and have all those dice available. That is not the case anymore. We deal with normies. Tournaments have become more normified. Normal people go to tournaments rather than just the extreme tournament people you've heard of from like 5 days ago. 5 years ago. 5 years ago, not 5 days ago. So they want to make things a bit more easy for the average person. They did a D12 Apocalypse style system, which gave you a bunch of D12s with it. People didn't like it as much. The idea was you could play 4,000 points of 40k in an hour and a half, in 2 hours. You get your Titans on the board, things like that. It didn't sell very well because you need to buy a whole nother set of things. You need to buy... Oh, sorry. You need to buy more data cards because everything had to have newly redone datasheets. And this was all of the units. Not like in Combat Patrol, where they have 5 or 6 units and they just remake or barely modify the unit. D6s are pretty easy to get from any board game, so they'll stick with a D6 system. Even if a D12 system would be better, because then +1 to hit isn't as much as +1 to hit nowadays, you can have more granularity, they'll stick with the D6. That's what everyone's got, that's what everyone sells, that's what everyone expects. They don't do drastic changes like that. No, I don't think Games Workshop are going to do an extensive, comprehensive system of rules like Magic, but a lot more like Age of Sigmar, where it has subcategories of things. Because it's like, refer to point 20 is about charging, and point 21 will be about resolving the combat phase. And you can see, like, oh, the order, I follow point 20, then point 21, and you do it like that. Right, Age of Sigmar does have overspill of wounds. So a damage to attack can kill 2 1-health models. In 40k, a damage to attack would kill one 1-health model. There's no overspill. So we could have a spillover rule. That would explain the difference between mortal wounds compared to devastating wounds pretty easily. And then Primarchs could overkill, because Primarchs are getting an absurd number of attacks. Like, oh, we get 12 or 16 damage 2 attacks. You don't need to do split profiles if you just have the overspill rule. Then you can have 8 attacks at damage 2, that could kill 8 Marines, or 16 Cultists, or do up to 16 wounds to a tank. Having that as a keyword ability, much like we've seen with other things, well, devastating wounds, basically. You could do it like devastating wounds, or say devastating wounds is ignore armor saves, and invulnerable saves? I suppose so. If they actually capped invulnerable saves at 4+, I maybe could be okay with them leaving the invulnerable save on. Like, devastating wounds is AP minus 12, essentially. But you still get your invuln save. Yeah, lethality, part of the lethality of 40k at the moment, also comes from lethal hits and sustained hits. That's the most common things to get. It was much rarer in 8th edition. You would have like wording very similar. If you roll a 6 to hit, get 2 additional hits, only in combat and only against Imperial units. Otherwise you get sustained hits 1 on this one unit. It was a bit rarer. Now it is the most common thing. You have a stratagem that gives you lethal hits. You have a different stratagem in a different detachment that gives you sustained hits. And one's in combat and one's shooting, and oh, it's so totally different. And you'd have different characters. One character will give your faction sustained hits, one will give you lethal hits. If you have lots of characters, like the Genestealer Cult, one will be lethal hits in combat, the Biologus, one will be lethal hits at shooting, Benefictus. And lethal and sustained hits together are really oppressive. In any faction, the combo to always look for is lethal and sustained, triggered on a 5+. So one way to bring down lethality is to stop them comboing together, or say you can only have one, right? You can have lethal hits, but you can't have lethal hits and sustained hits. If there's ever something that gives you both, like a Deathwatch squad led by a lieutenant, and you're in the sustained hits doctrine, that unit would have to choose if it has sustained hits or lethal hits. That would bring down lethality. You would have to have a new unit rule for the Chaos Hellbrute, but you could cope. Age of Sigmar also has sticky objectives for all of the units. If the game size is going to be smaller by design, like 11th edition has few units on the board, then yes, that's good. In Combat Patrol, having it on just one unit doesn't actually feel like enough, if you have a battle line unit in your Combat Patrol. Having it on every unit would feel better. Then you don't have one unit huddled at the back on your objective, while the other 2 units and a character go out and take the 2 mid-board objectives and try and push through to the last one. It's an Age of Sigmar rule and it works pretty well, though that is a combat game where you need to keep moving and you need to charge to get anything done, which the gun-based 40k does not. Would alternating sequences help the game? Like player 1 moves, player 2 moves? I don't think it would. Not massively. I think then you get into a bit more of a... If it was done like an entire phase, you do your entire movement phase, then your opponent does their entire movement phase, then you do the shooting phase. Well, the problem there is if the second player had an entire combat army that wanted to charge, they moved closer. And now they're in range of your rapid fire weapons and more of your guns. So that's a bit more difficult for the shooting armies, for the combat armies. They get shot at point blank range. Ironically, I feel you should give all leaders the same ability and pick which one you like. I don't know if it's giving you more options or if it becomes yeah, just pick that one and do it like that. I'm okay with them having different abilities. It'd be nicer if they were more thematic and not just, this is the character that gives you sustained hits. Yeah. Every battle line unit should have sticky objectives. I think that might work a bit better. Especially in the smaller games, which I think Games Workshop should be. A little bit smaller. One of Age of Sigmar's core stratagems is a D6 reactive move, or just D6 move. You don't need to be within 9 inches of an enemy. Just one of your units redeploys in your opponent's turn. It gives you more to do in your opponent's turn. I like that as an idea. You could stick with, I have a reactive move if you move within 6 inches of me. You could also have redeploy to move away from people before they charge. Move on to an objective that you didn't quite reach in the previous turn, so you can score it in your coming turn. I like the idea of redeploy as a core stratagem. And I think redeploy is new to 4th edition of Age of Sigmar. I don't remember it in 3rd, from what I played of 3rd. The charge roll is the only thing you can reroll in Age of Sigmar. That's what, like, command reroll does. Just charge rolls. That's the important one, because if you don't make a charge, then all of your attacks miss, none of the enemy dies, you didn't move, so you didn't take the objective from them, and you're right there out in the open, and you're going to get shot and killed. Making your charges is important. Command reroll has been continually reduced in what it can do and what you can use it on from its introduction in 8th edition, when it was like any dice roll, through to 10th edition, where it's like, okay, a hit roll, wound roll, save roll, damage roll, charge roll, battle shock test. No, but not battle shock test. You cannot use command reroll on battle shock tests. Remember that. Yeah, that's about it though. There's not much else. So if they reduced it down to just charge roll, I don't think command reroll would be any worse off. And you get the fun moments of, you rolled a 1 for your save with that last lasgun and now Abaddon's gone down. If your opponent can say, yeah, I'm going to reroll that 2+ save. Oh, I rolled a 2. He's actually fine. It takes away a fun moment. If they did alternating actions, it would have to be like per phase rather than per unit. Otherwise, you just get the leapfrog like extra chest thing. I move this unit onto the objective. Oh, you move a unit onto the objective to counter it. Okay, I'll move my next unit onto the objective. You move your next unit onto the objective. It could change hands like 4 times before you've even scored it. Unless you're also scoring after each unit activation. I don't know about that. Ooh, instead of a charge reroll, add D3 to your charge roll. Or just maybe flat 3 inches. Then you could get a long charge roll, and you also guarantee a 4-inch charge. Or 2, 5, 6-inch charge. Yeah. Maybe that. Just add 3 to your charge roll. And if you want to try a crazy 15-inch charge, then you can. Or we could keep it capped at 12. Like, if you are 12.5 inches away from someone, which if you were 10.5 inches away, you could make it an 11. If you roll a 12 and the charge is 12.5 inches, you're not allowed to make that charge because you can only declare a charge against enemies within 12 inches. Right, so many of the units have an ability. Not every unit needs an ability. I know some people are like, oh, well, that's going to take away the fun of this unit or that unit. So many of these abilities are either kind of pointless or dull because we've seen it elsewhere. And some of them are just, you have Deep Strike. Oh, we made Deep Strike a key word from 9th edition to 10th edition. Right, so we need to give them a new ability to replace that not having an ability. Not having an ability should be okay. You have your weapons, you have your profile, you have your keywords. That is enough. You have stratagems key to particular units. I think that should be fine to represent how a unit operates. Some units on datasheets could cost command points. I have nothing wrong with that. That is something we have in Age of Sigmar. You might have a once per game ability, and it costs a command point to use. If you think of so many characters, they have 2 abilities on their datasheet. Like, oh, a lieutenant has lethal hits, and you can also fall back and shoot and charge. Make fall back, shoot and charge a stratagem. Or cost a command point. The Battle Sister Canoness. We have, yeah, you get cheaper stratagems. What if we also had the, hey, you know when you do your once per game 2+ invulnerable save? Make that also cost a stratagem. Command point. Make it cost a command point. In this case, maybe this Canoness is free command point. And then it could be done in reaction to something, rather than declare at the start of a phase, where it can be like baited out of you. Terrain is done different in Age of Sigmar. The new mission packs have preset terrain, both the type of terrain and the location. I know that we have tournament stuff for 40k, but that's not related to particular missions. It's all pretty generic stuff. It's like, this is a small ruin, this is a wall, this is a wood. Ruins, walls, places of power. Most people ignore the places of power special rules. That gives you a bit more free-form terrain, as you can just use one as the other. As one is like a large ruin, I'll use a large forest. Very little difference between them. That small ruin uses the rules for a small wood. No problem. I prefer to be a bit more loose with terrain, especially in 40k. Well, even in 40k. And have it match the roads and the streets of the board pattern, because that's what I think looks nice. That could be good. That could be good. That would mean that there is terrain and thought behind each of the missions. It isn't do whatever you want, which was very vague in the 10th edition core rules. And it isn't, okay, you're playing 11th edition, great, follow the tournament companion. If you're not at a tournament, then I don't know what you do. I guess you're also following the tournament companion, because that's the only time that you're advised on terrain. So seeing this is the kind of terrain we expect you to have, with like, it's on all the deployment maps. So if you're like randomly doing it for a mission, then you can see, okay, you have this deployment zone, which is step deployment, or short board edges deployment, or long board edges deployment, or corners, whatever it is. Then they could also put on the terrain and the good location of it. Because you've got like 2 big ruins, 2 small ruins, 2 small woods, and 2 places of power. That's 8 pieces of terrain. If they're the right size, and the trees actually block line of sight from one side to the other, that would be perfect for 40k. Six bits of like large terrain, 2 lots of small things like Munitorium crates. Yeah, maybe. That could work. If the game was less lethal, less terrain would work better. Yeah, I know. The terrain that we have with the L-shaped ruins and the tournament stuff is a symptom of the current rules rather than a design of the rules. To make the game work, to get rid of one of the flaws, which is any unit being able to shoot any other unit will be able to kill most of them, unless you're like a tiny chaff unit. Like 10 cultists are not going to do anything to anyone in shooting, but 10 Space Marines will be able to take out most of an enemy squad. That's where you need the terrain. If they reduced ranges, like, oh yeah, you can't shoot over 18 inches or it's -1 to hit, that would be okay. One of the twisty things in the new mission deck, the 2025-2026 one, is that you cannot fire over 18 inches. Oh, that makes big guns, like, obsolete. Because if they need line of sight, they were probably only firing 18 inches anyway. Generally, the game needs to be less lethal, then you can have different kinds of terrain. Until then, you need either line of sight blocking terrain because it's a big block of something, like a building, like a solid building that you can't go inside, like a tower. Otherwise, it has to be ruins. Heavy weapons ignore the long-range firepower? Yeah. It's very rare. It is indeed very rare that I'm shooting over 24 inches. Like, 30 inches might be the extreme of it. If you just want to be kind of annoying and be like, I'm Tau and I shoot a little bit further than you. Oh yeah, we're going to move 6 inches. And now you're in range of me. Well, never mind then. Yeah, you need to be able to do the hit and also be able to survive the hit. Which then you think about it model to model. If one model shoots another model, say Space Marine, Tactical Marine fires 2 shots at a Chaos Space Marine Legionary, well, you're going to get probably 1 hit, probably 2 hits, maybe 2 hits. One of them is going to wound, and then on a 3+, they don't take a wound. And if they did take a wound, they reduce their wounds by 1. Lethality has never really been right, apart from in about 4th edition of 40k, where it was rare that your unit in combat would completely tear through another unit. You had to be like an Ork Horde or a Tyranid Genestealer mob. Other way around. Tyranid Genestealer Horde, Ork mob. Otherwise, it's if you charge, you are going to kill the enemy. And if you don't, you have really badly miscalculated it. Whenever Eldar charge and they don't kill their opponent in one go, they get slapped to death. Jane Zar and some Banshees charged 10 Sternguard. They killed 6 of them. Ah, that's not to plan. The 4 of them fight back. They don't have melee weapons, but it's 4 attacks each, so that's 16 hits. And we're re-rolling all hit rolls. Great, we've got 15 successful hits, and we're wounding you on 3s. That's 10. Okay, we've killed 5 Banshees in return. That's a really bad exchange, but that's the lethality. You have to wipe them out in one go with a charge. Okay, allies. Allies in Age of Sigmar used to be really good. Pick a minor part of a Grand Alliance like the ghouls. You could be the ghouls of the Grand Alliance death. And then you could ally in vampires and ghosts. Not so much now. But in 2nd edition, you could do some really cool stuff of, say, my faction is the Grand Alliance. And then you can have all of the units, access to all of them. You get a less specialized rules. Something more general. However, you could then also ally in from other Grand Alliances. Very few people did that. Most people were like, no, I'm going to be Legions of Nagash and have some Soulblight Gravelord. No, they weren't around at that time. Some Nighthorned allies. Whereas my Grand Alliance Death Army had handgunners and a cannon from Cities of Sigmar. Proper Sylvania. So Games Workshop could do big ally books, or this is the big faction. You can take anything into these before whatever else you do. Yeah, Legions of Nagash was before Soulblight. I liked Legions of Nagash. There was some really cool stuff. 2nd edition was my favourite. Like a crown of better resurrection and all the skeletons nearby. Yeah, that was good. Yeah. Then, what was I saying? Yeah, so we could do big books of, this is the ally book. So this is how Agents of the Imperium works. And then you send off your units to other Imperial factions almost without limit. You could do the same with a Chaos book, with a Xenos book. Sort of. You could take like the Zotes and the Spindle Drones, the Amble, put them into a Xenos Allies index. Put a version of the Kroot in there too, because they're mercenaries. You could have Harlequins in there, but only as an ally to Eldar and Dark Eldar. You could have some contracted Votann Jaegers. That will make people buy outside of their usual range, and once you have a taste, maybe you buy the army, because that's how Games Workshop gets ya. And then we have Agents of the Imperium. Would you then need relative cost? Maybe. Maybe not. I know Agents of the Imperium has separate costs for whether you use them in Codex or as allies, but that's as allies cost is the same whether it's allied into Imperial Guard or Custodes. Oh yeah, or Blood Axe Mercenaries. Yeah, get some mercenaries out there. And then just have one big ally book. And then it says on each unit who they can ally into. Yeah, could be that, 50 points to add X to Y, but 70 points to add X to Z. I'm hoping that's how they do characters in the next edition. So attaching a Palatine to a Battle Sister squad, they cost 50 points. Attaching a Palatine to a Sacrosanct squad, the Palatine now costs 65 points. That makes it a bit nicer. It makes it a bit more awkward for your army construction. You're not like, okay, this character will go with one of them at some point. Or maybe it makes it easier because you know beforehand where they're going to go. Very rarely have I played and think, maybe I'll shuffle the characters around this time. I do it a little bit in Host of Ascension. Like maybe the Primus will be not with the Neophyte. No, the Primus is going to be with the Neophytes. But maybe they'll be with the Acolyte Demolition team. Maybe there. So I can switch it out a bit. Don't like attaching heroes to squads, but that's a personal preference. I think heroes being in units works much better than 8th and 9th edition where they're separate and you had to have a string of rules that are look out, sir. So it's you can shoot them, except if they're within 3 inches of a unit. Then you can't. Except you can if that unit is like a different unit type to them. But then you can, but you can't. Except you can't, but then you can actually if that unit has only like 2 other models in it. Then you can. Like, so much stuff, and it was just confusing, like, can I shoot you or not? Lone Operative as a rule works so much better. Attaching characters into units also works much better. So I'm hoping they do something around the points. And the allies as well. So like Chaos Demons Index, a Chaos Demons Index allies thing, which also has basic cultists that could go to any Chaos faction, because they could be demon worshipping cultists, they could be Emperor's Children worshipping cultists, they could be Chaos Knight worshipping cultists. And you could also put in Legends and Imperial Army units. You could put in the tanks from Horus Heresy that all of the Gods and Legion faction bits should have access to. Because the Emperor's Children can't use so many tanks that others can. Then it's easy to ally out into faction. Is that like a Grand Army book? Or is it a book of like index units like Imperial Index, like Imperial Agents Index was, which has no detachments? And if that's the only place a unit turns up, and there is no detachments, ooh, did we just scup a Harlequins? Is it now not fun to play Harlequins? If that's the only place Harlequins exist. Or you have to ally in the Harlequins, and then we have the Deathwatch problem. Do they have the correct keywords? Godlike Poet. I don't know about Lone Operative being can't be shot unless you're within 12 inches or closest enemy. Because if you have an infiltrating Lone Operative, I don't see why they should be shot at 20 inches away. They should be relatively hidden because that's what they are. They're one person who presumably knows what they're doing by themselves. They're the stealthy characters, the snipers, the saboteurs. I'm okay with Lone Operative as it is. And there being only one model in the game that can counter Lone Operative, and that's the Vindicare Assassin. Right, I think I'm through the Age of Sigmar-ing stuff. So next we're going to move on to the factions, and what I think is going to happen to each faction in 11th edition. We'll start with Chaos, go through Chaos Space Marines, the different parts of Chaos Space Marines, like the Legions, and Chaos Demons, Chaos Knights. Then we'll look at the Xenos with Genestealer Cult, Tyranids, Eldar, Dark Eldar, Tau. You know what the factions are. We've done all of the Imperium ones last week. I'm going to take a 2-minute break before that. So there's a couple of things I wanted to point out before I do the break. There is a link to Ko-fi in the description. I would really appreciate it if you could drop me some tip money and start filling up that bar to support Christian von Carmian through August. That's the only one that fills up that bar. It's Ko-fi, it's like, I click on it, tip money, you can do subscription things if you so wish. The problem is the summer months don't pay very well on YouTube. People are on holiday, people are not watching stuff. Christmas and December, those are amazing for payouts, but not at summer. So that would be nice if you could do that. Also, I am on 19,972 subscribers. That is 28 short of 20,000. Halfway to the funny number. It would be wonderful if I could get to that before the end of the stream. Although the average would be, for like the amount of time we're streaming, like 8 subscribers. But if you're watching this now and you haven't subscribed, please click that subscribe button. Okay. 2-minute break, and then we're back and we'll do Chaos. I will see you soon. Okay. We have... Right, we want to get that. What else do we know? Don't need that anymore. Ooh. Thank you very much. Oh, you went through the pipeline. You went through the Von Carmian Sisters to Genestealer Cult pipeline. That's great to know. I'm glad you enjoyed one and then got into the other. That's wonderful. Thank you very much for the monies. I'm glad I've been useful to you. Okay, here is our all of the factions. So we've already talked about all of the Imperium ones. We've got all the Chaos ones to do. Thank you. That is a substantial amount of money. I really appreciate that. I'll be able to afford some food and travel to places with that. Which is going to be useful because I have, tournaments coming up and I need to go out for them, and travel can be weirdly expensive. British trains are not cheap. British buses are also not cheap, but then you're sitting in them for much longer. Thank you, both of you, for the money. Alright. So we're doing Chaos, and it looks like it has maybe reset it. Yeah. So I want to add my Emperor's Children back in. There's the cool image. Yeah, because I don't see Emperor's Children on there. Okay, good. Right. So this is a convenient way to say, for anyone that's coming in later, this is the faction we're talking about now, this is the ones we've already talked about, and this is the ones we have yet to talk about. Is that someone subscribing? Might be someone subscribing. That would be nice. Yes. Okay. Not cheap, but to compensate, they're also not good, so it evens out. Right, we're going to start with the Chaos Space Marines. The Chaos Space Marines of Chaos. When I talk about the Chaos Cult armies, or the Cult of the Dark Gods rule, that refers to where the Legion armies are another term. I'm talking about the 4 legions that have their own codex in this edition. So that's the World Eaters, the Thousand Sons, the Death Guard, and the Emperor's Children. So sometimes I'll say Chaos Cult Army. I'm not referring to the cultists or the cultist detachment. I mean the Cult of the Dark Gods rule with the Chaos Legions. So we want to take the Chaos Space Marines. There it is. That's what we're talking about right now. Right, they can get allies and things from demons. They can get allies from the other cults of the Dark Gods armies. What they could do depends on what Chaos Space Marines and their interaction with demons. The demons index could disappear because it's not getting a codex in this edition. That's upsetting. A little bit upsetting. They could maybe get undivided demons into their codex. So you get Bellicor, you get Harpies, you get the Soul Grinder, maybe, could come over here. Or the Soul Grinder, if it also comes over here, might be Legends. That's what I think they could do for some new units. Or it's a way to split up the Chaos Demons into, this is Chaos Space Marines, which is undivided. Because all of the legions in the Chaos Space Marine Codex either don't like the gods or are Chaos Undivided. Like the Word Bearers, they worship them all. The Alpha Legion is less interested in the gods unless they're doing god stuff for sabotage. Like pray to Tzeentch for some explosions to happen or extra fire. That does happen in the lore, but they're in theory not praying to the gods. Which is then odd when they're praying to the Dark Gods as their army rule. We know from the leaks that came out Wednesday that we're going to get new Raptor models. Or we should get new Raptor models because the previous Raptor models are more than 12 years old. That is much older than I was expecting. They could really do with some bike models. The bikes have barely been updated since the 90s. Like you put the 1990s version next to the 2012 version, and apart from the option of a Power Fist, they look identical. So they could really do with some new Chaos bike models. If we're adding in demons, maybe we also add in some Chaos Hounds, but a bit more cyber-like, like the Space Wolves, Cyber Wolves. Not so that you can just take the models from Age of Sigmar / the old world, say, oh yeah, these Chaos Hounds, yep, they're now in my 40k army. And if we add Chaos Hounds in, then we have everything from the Eye of Terror campaign book expansion from 2003, which was amazing. There were infiltrating traitors. There were infiltrators. Yeah, we'll call them infiltrators. There were mutants. There were big mutants. Well, we now have accursed cultists, which are mutants and big mutants in the same unit. We have Chaos Spawn, which was the heavy support choice for that army. And then the fast attack choice was Chaos Hounds. So have some Chaos Hounds. Could be nice. That could sort of round out the army. New Doom Rider model when we get to the Emperor's Children. Of course. Yeah, I have thoughts about Vashtor. But which one do we do next? Okay, let's do Emperor's Children next. So we want Chaos. Done. Emperor's Children. Yes, if we're redoing the bikes, let's get a Doom Rider model. I think that it looks like 40k will be Age of Sigmarized in terms of their god books. So the Slaanesh units will be in the Emperor's Children Codex, and you can use them all of the time. Shouldn't have a limit of 25% or only in one detachment, because in Age of Sigmar, we have the Hedonites of Slaanesh, which is all of their human followers. They're more Slaaneshified Chaos Warriors, and also the Chaos Demons of Slaanesh. So your Demonettes are here, your Seekers of Slaanesh are here. If you look at the Blades of Khorne book, you have the cultist version of the Chaos Cult Men. You then have the Chaos Warrior version of the Chaos Space Marines, not the Chaos Space Marines, of the Chaos Warriors that's of Khorne, the Khornate version of the Chaos Warriors. And you have Bloodletters, and you have Bloodthirsters, and you have Blood Crushers, and people on Juggernauts. It's all there. Feel like there should be a Renegades and Heretics Codex that buds off Chaos Space Marines as a catch-all for the other stuff. That's one way to do it. Then you could put more cultists in there and demons in there. And then you could then ally that into all of the others. That would give Emperor's Children some cultists. That's an idea. I like that idea. It's not what I've written down. But it's an idea. So we get all the Slaanesh units into the Emperor's Children Codex. Then they need to actually expand it to make it work. So we want Predators, if not Emperor's Children Predators. We want rules so that they can use the legacies of the Heresy units, because those legend rules were written before the Emperor's Children Codex came out. It's a case of, oh, you could use them then, now you can't, just because of where the rules are. Similar to what happened to, like, the Death Watch. Oh yeah, it used to be able to work fine, but they're now in Imperial Agents, and not in Space Marines, so it doesn't work so well. That's the problem bit. All the time when, oh yeah, you can attach any character that can be joined by, that can otherwise join a Vanguard veteran unit. Well, the Vanguard veteran units in Legends, they're not mentioned in the Codex anymore. That means no characters can join. A week ago, all the characters could join. It's a problem with the rules. And then you have boarding actions, where for a time, you use the Imperial Agent's Death Watch, but in the Adeptus Astartes boarding actions attachment, which meant that those units could not use the boarding action stratagems. So they want to get some big vehicles, regular vehicles, just Predators. It doesn't need to be an Emperor's Children Predator. You don't need an Emperor's Children version of the Land Raider. You can do something slightly different with the rules. Think of all of the Rhinos. Each of the different God Rhinos has a different ability. The Grey Knight's new Rhino has a different ability to every other Rhino. It's not healing a wound. It's giving you like a ward save of stuff. Against mortal wounds? I think against mortal wounds. Or it's an invulnerable save, but I don't know if that would really help. Yeah. So we want a Doom Rider. We want the Emperor's Children to have Doom Rider. A Sonic Dreadnought seems really obvious. I don't think that was even a unit that's appeared in Legends. I don't even know where it would be. Sonic Dreadnought? No. Did that not get Legends rules? That would suck. So give us a Sonic Dreadnought. That seems really so on the nose. Like, there you go. Expand the range that way. And some Chaos Cultists of some kind. They're going to be cultists with a quirk. So we have Poxwalkers for the Death Guard, which are zombies. We have the blood-mad, blood-infused fellows. What are they called? The ones that the World Eaters have. What are the name of the ones that the World Eaters have? They're all called something. Jackals, the generic name. Very generic name. Otherwise, there's the Goremongers. Now, Goremongers sounds more blood-related, because the Jackals get confused with the Genestealer Cult Jackals that are on bikes. Yeah, the Sonic Dreadnought is not in Legends, and it should have been just to have some rules. So that's an easy way to expand their range. Old models back, and some obvious newish models. But mainly it consists of getting old models back. Stuff that didn't already have rules in 10th edition. And people will love that. Hey, you can get this thing back. Games Workshop taketh away, Games Workshop giveth. Which is why I shouldn't be so happy about Celestians. If Celestians with guns do come back, my attitude really should be, these should never have gone away. What were you doing, Games Workshop? This was still a unit you could build from the Battle Sister kit. There was no reason to stop it. And if that's too many units, well, they increase the number of units that you can have with the Genestealer Cult Acolyte kit. That is now 3 units you can build from it. And the Tau battlesuits, the basic battlesuits, the Crisis battlesuits, we're on 3 or 4 or 5 maybe units you can build from that box. So that shouldn't be a problem. So yeah, Games Workshop took my Celestians. I should be more annoyed than happy if they do come back. In a good way. In a way that I approve of. Okay, World Eaters. So World Eaters are also Khorne. So this is where we should have the Bloodletters, the Bloodthirsters, all go together in the book. You've got Angron, that's a big demon. Have some other big demons with him. There were the specialist Khornate Terminators, and I can't remember their name, but they had a special name for the World Eaters Terminators. They were teased or partly mentioned at the end of 9th edition in stratagem form only. It was like, hey, you know, for one turn or one phase, I think it was a whole turn, for like 2 command points, you can upgrade your Terminators to be Red Butcher Terminators. That's the name. Thank you, Brother Ahriman. You maybe shouldn't know about Khornate things. You should know about Thousand Sons, Brother Ahriman. Yes. So they were better for a bit, but they weren't their own unit. Arguably 8-bound fill that kind of role, but they are also possessed, being specialist Khornate possessed instead of regular possessed. But that's how you could expand it. Khorne needs some melee adjacent buff or weapon. Yeah, okay. Something that isn't just people running and screaming at their enemy. But this is what happens when you try and base an army off one unit. These were the Khorne Berserkers, and now the Khorne Berserkers are the army. Plus a bunch of other generic Chaos Space Marine things, like the Defiler, Terminators, Predator, but make sure they all hit on a 4+ now, for weapon skill. No, ballistic skill. They shoot worse. Adding in Khorne Demons balances it out a little bit more. A little bit more. But it still struggles to stand up by itself. Red Priests? Yeah, you could do something special with that. So they're like apothecaries, but they also put the butcher's nails in people. Easy way to expand. Do that. That's an obvious one. And I think the last time there was a teaser and it was like, oh yeah, you're getting a special character for the 8-bound because they joined the unit and then the ones around them are too angry to die. Instead they could have done the Red Priest person, apothecary. Yeah. Some of the old Forge World demons? Yeah, you could take some old Forge World demons and give them, but then if you give them to just the World Eaters and someone had it nicely painted up in Thousand Sons colours, isn't that going to be upsetting? In the lore, the World Eaters are much more than just melee. Yeah, so they operate mostly as a legion. However, all of them are berserkers. Even their Havocs are berserkers. They want to get into combat, so to represent that, they don't get Havocs, but they should have Raptors, they should have Bikers. I don't see why not. If you add in just basic parts of the Chaos Space Marines, plus the Chaos Demons, then they don't have access to other things that are more ranged, like the Havocs. That should work as like a rounded army. It's always the problem of, we've done it in the past where they could have this or that, and now they can't. It's inevitably upsetting. Like having units disappear entirely, which is why we have Legends as a safety net to catch them, which Games Workshop will want to use, because as people have mentioned, that was some part of the Chapter House lawsuit. Hey, if you don't have rules for these units, people will just make their own models of them. Third-party models. and sell them. Yeah, it's, do you want a one-dimensional army, or do you want flavored Chaos Space Marines? I don't know what they'll do with, like, all of the different other legions. Same as with the chapters. Do you have an Iron Hands Codex, an Imperial Fist Codex? I don't think you need to, now that we have detachments, and this is how detachments work. The Chapter House lawsuit was, I can't remember which year it was, but it was where they took a publisher which was like making specialist parts for Games Workshop models, and they got part of the thing they wanted, which was this company stops making stuff. The part they didn't really want was, okay, anyone is allowed to make Space Marine shoulder pads that happen to fit Space Marine models produced by Games Workshop. However, they are not allowed to put on Space Marine 40k iconography because that's artwork that Games Workshop has. There was also a part of it saying, hey, if there is no current rules, even if you made the model in the past, even if you had Zotes in the past, if there are no rules for Zotes, it's not a current thing. And then anyone can make a Zote model and sell it. That was another part of it. I'm very much abridging what happened. But it's been some shadow that's like held over Games Workshop for quite some time. Okay, Death Guard, that is our next one. That is a very full-looking range already, after their 8th edition, like almost full revamp. They maybe got too many units, but we don't want to take units away. That's mean. What they don't need is more characters. If anything, for these like fully fleshed out armies, Games Workshop should just redo some of the units. That is better than, hey, we need to shove something else in here, and then give it rules, and then try and make it last forever. The Death Guard would maybe want the same basic things any Legion wants. Bikes, Raptors, Nurgle Bikers at toughness 6 in like 5th edition were horrifying. You're wounding them on 5s at best, usually 6s because of where the toughness table thing worked. Like Strength 3 could only wound Toughness 6 on a 6. I think Strength 4 was also only wounding Toughness 6 on a 6. It was horrifying. Do the Death Guard need Death Guard cultists? Or if you play Death Guard and your cultists are now in Legends, do you care? Or are Poxwalkers enough? Do you want some little people with knives and or guns going around? Plague Marines on Plague Toads? We already have Plague Bearers on bloat drones or flies. Flying things. I don't know if we need cavalry that's Plague Marines on Plague Toads. Are they hopping around really fast? Or are they crawling? Ooh, Havoc equivalent could be good. Yeah, that suits Death Guard. Shouldn't any God Chaos Space Marine army have the same treatment as like Space Wolf Blood Angels, where they have specialist units plus the basic units? Otherwise, should special chapters only have access to certain units? Yeah, That's the weird thing. There are at least 2 ways of doing it. The other way is then allies or not allies. The problem, of course... Are we still live? Yeah, we're still live. Okay. The problem is currently, Games Workshop is doing it both ways. The Death Guard have their own codex with a bunch of units, but not all of the units that they used to be able to have when they were part of Chaos Space Marines. You could run a Chaos Space Marine army that looks very similar to a Death Guard army and has all of the Nurgle keyword stuff. You play the Packbound Zealots, say everyone is Nurgle, great, let's go. Add in some Death Guard Plague Marines, because you can do that. That's one of the rules. And it'll look very similar. Or you go for the weird and unique stuff. Then we have the Space Marines, which are, we have our own weird and unique stuff. However, we can also take most of, if not all, of the core Codex Space Marine things. I think that way is better. Then you could have, without much effort, Death Guard Raptors, Death Guard Bikers. People that have them can get them out of the shelves. People who want them will buy those kits. Yeah, I mentioned with the Imperium stuff last week, the Space Wolves are more unique, the Black Templars are also much more unique. their own characters, versions of things, and also their own army rule, and detachments that focus on Black Templar keywords, not Adeptus Astartes keywords. Two ways of doing it. It depends what you want to go for. Do you want to go for the God aspect of the army, or do you want to go for the Chaos Space Marine version of the army? I think next edition they'll go more for the God aspect and put the Demons and the Chaos Marines together, as long as it's related to those gods. Then you can ally a little bit into the Chaos Space Marines. Right, Poxwalkers are enough. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, but some Havocs, that seems very Death Guard. Right. I think that's it for Death Guard. So, Thousand Suns. There's Thousand Suns. When you think of all of the Zangor stuff as well, that's a more fleshed out range. Otherwise, they are just Rubric Marines and then Rubric Terminators, but that's what the army has been otherwise. And you can ally Rubric Marines around. They're very unique in what they do because no one can really become a Rubric Marine. You could, if you're a sorcerer, become an aspiring sorcerer and lead Rubric Marines, but the Rubric Marines are still based off the people who were around after the destruction of their homeworld. Prospero burns, they escape. Ahriman tries to fix a thing, Ahriman messes up. Much like his dad. Those are the Thousand Suns that became the Rubric Marines. That's very much in the lore. You don't get much expansions beyond that. I know we've had weird bird automatons. You could go more automatons. Like, what if we got a spirit and put it in something that isn't a Hellbrute? Which, actually, their Hellbrutes use Chaos Space Marines from other legions, or willing renegades. Semi-willing renegades. Yeah. Getting more robots is standard. Zangor wagons. Zangors are definitely a weird one. Ooh, make the Rubrics a special version and give them, like, a basic marine. Made up of, like, living renegades? I don't know if that would be enough to break their identity, at which point aren't they so similar to Chaos Space Marines? I think they may be too similar to Chaos Space Marines then. They have done more variants of the Rubric Marines only through magic stuff in previous editions, where you could say, okay, this unit follows this particular cult of magic. I know that you sort of have in the Codex how you can say, okay, this army follows a particular cult of magic, or maybe you can dedicate them to each unit. I haven't read the Thousand Suns Codex in detail. I got as far as, wow, that's a silly Zangor detachment. Hopefully someone will play that against me at some point, and that's about as far as I got. Well, looking more at the range, I think the Mutalith Vortex Beast will disappear, because that is a much older Warhammer Fantasy kit, and it was meant to be a dual kit. The other one is where you have like a summoning circle on the back of the beast with a bunch of swords in it, and you make the beast that way. That's a way to say, hey, there's another option. But I think the Mutalith Vortex Beast would go away. It was a model that didn't sell very well because it was for Warhammer Fantasy in the dying days of Warhammer Fantasy. It was in 8th edition, partway through 8th edition. The cooler other unit they came out with was like a big plinth that was carried by 2 ogres. No, not ogres, like Chaos Trolls. And you could have a beheading station, or you could have someone chanting and praying, or you could have fancy braziers of skulls. That was a much more cool model, but it's generically Chaos. I think it's in Warhammer Total War. It might be. But the Mutalith Vortex Beast could be replaced by something else. Maybe a Zangor Vortex Beast. That's an option. Weird tentacle mouth. It depends if they want to go, oh, look at the mutation and the change, or they want to go with more, hey, all is dust, we tried to avoid all of this stuff and it didn't work. They would still get the Tzeentch Demons though. But your army could then be led by a big chicken with the only actual human being one aspiring sorcerer who's leading the, say, Rubric Marines. Thousand Suns being able to summon demons more? I think as long as they just have demons in their Codex, it works out alright. And playing it safe may be more the way to go. And when I say the Mutalith Vortex Beast will go away, I mean they'll stop selling the kit and the rules will be in Legends. Absolutely still playable. But I maybe see that as more of a loss for them than a gain. But yeah, more automaton stuff, more potentially rubric things, potentially could happen. Contemptor style Dreadnought, Saturnine Dreadnought, but it's got dust inside. That could be how they go with it. Right, the big one is going to be the Chaos Demons. Because Chaos Demons exist as an index and will only exist as an index in this edition. A living index allegedly, but they have their 6 detachments, a generic one for each of the gods and one for Bellicor. That's all they're getting. In 11th edition, they could be an index again with 1 detachment, like at the start. Just to say, there is a way that you can have an all-demon army. This is Chaos mixed. Not so much Chaos undivided, but Chaos mixed. And then the god-specific detachments will be in the cult books. So if you want to play Khorne Demonkin, that is with all of the Khorne Demons, that is in the World Eater's Army book. There should still be some way of playing an all-demon army, otherwise it's upsetting if you have an army of demons with an assortment of gods. I know a lot of people have, oh, I'm just Khorne, so I just play the Khorne Demons. Other people will be like, I just play Tzeentch, so I just want to be the Tzeentch Demons. And it's been weird at the start of the edition where the only way to really play them is generic, with some stratagems that maybe suit your god more than others. But that's about it. Age of Sigmar has split them up, and that hasn't really caused horrible outcry from Chaos Demon players. You can still play them in Old World. The Chaos Demons are everywhere. It is an army for all of the game systems. But they're less liked in 40k. Because you can use them so much in Age of Sigmar and in Old World. And they're liked even less in Horus Heresy, because it's meant to be, oh, we have the demons, generic demons of the Ruin Storm, but we're not really god-specific at that time. It wants to be about the Chaos Space Marines. Yeah, fear they'll be completely rolled into Chaos Legions, but if they do, hopefully in all detachments, yeah, maybe. Will the demons get refresh models thanks to Age of Sigmar? I don't think so. I don't know if that's maybe on the cards, because then it's a thing of which different game system do we play them in? Like, Games Workshop likes it where you can have one box that you buy for lots of different armies. So they like the Rhino and the Land Raider because you can have a Chaos Space Marine Land Raider, a Death Guard Land Raider, a Psychana Custodes Land Raider, Rhino. You can have a Death Watch Land Raider. You can have an Imperial Agents Rhino. That one kit gets sold to lots of people. They don't like it when you can use one model in lots of different game systems. They want you to buy an Age of Sigmar army and a 40k army and a Horus Heresy army, so that if you're ever not enjoying one of the games, you can try another one. Which was maybe the problem this time around with 3rd edition Horus Heresy, where it's become a bit too much like 40k. If all you're doing is replicating the theme and style and the problems of 40k into another game system, why are you doing that? People will already play 40k if they want that. So they don't want to do demons and sell too many demons because you can use demons anywhere. Like, look at the new Chaos Dwarves they announced 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago today. Chaos Dwarves, these are for Age of Sigmar only. They are not Old World Chaos Dwarves. If you want to play Old World Chaos Dwarves, you need an old Chaos Dwarf army, and at this point that means 3D printing. Yeah. So what they could do with Chaos Demons is make it generic. Yeah, Lost and Damned. That's got your cultists, your traitor guardsmen. It's got your Chaos Demons in it. You could expand it that way. Vashtor could be the leader. Or you could have Be'lakor here as the army leader. That could act like Chaos agents. They ally out to Chaos Space Marines, and the Chaos Knights, if they're in there, can also ally out to anything else. You could expand it into being Vastor's faction, or do you want to keep that as Be'lakor's faction? If you merge it with Chaos Knights and have demons with Chaos Knights, that matches the theme, because they have all sorts of nasty warp stuff happening around them. They're meant to be like walking warp gates. Harpies and anything bird-like that isn't Corvus, Corax, kind of suits them. There's a lot of things you can do with demons. Keep them around, get rid of them. You could just continue on the same as now. Have a demon army, maybe there's a demon book, maybe it's just a demon index. I would love it if next edition Games Workshop went full digital with the option to print them out. Or you don't really need the option to print them out. You could just have someone with access to the internet and a printer and say, yeah, those pages, print, which is what a lot of people do if they want a physical copy of it, especially with the index. You couldn't buy the index. You could get the little cards, which were wrong, and buy them, like your quick reference stuff. Otherwise, people were just printing out pages of the index PDF. That's what I was doing. And index Chaos Demons would be fine. Mixing Chaos Demons with Chaos Knights? We'll talk about Chaos Knights next. So Chaos Knights could go more demony, and then they've got demons, well, more generic demons like Undivided Demons going around and helping them. You've got some, what are they called, Harpies? Yeah, Harpies. That kind of suits them. You could do new models for the Harpies, for the Chaos Knights. Or we could do the Chaos Knights expand into the Dark Mechanicum. Some units may move from the Chaos Space Marines to here, but then can be allied back into Chaos Space Marines. With units like Obliterators, they don't have characters that can join them. With the right keyword, swapping back and forth can work. The Lord Discordant looks very Dark Mechanicum. Make a Dark Mechanicum Tech Priest with a few weapon options, maybe some alien weapon options like a Necron thing. Have some mutant-looking Skitarii. The Negavolt Cultists from Blackstone Fortress could go here. Like the Beastmen, they were 4 models in Blackstone Fortress, that game system. You could expand them into their own unit with a kill team. Now you have your core battle line unit. Yes, you've got the War Dogs, but you've also got an infantry unit in your Chaos Knight army. Because there's no other way of expanding Chaos Knights other than some other weapon option for variations of the same knight. Big Knight, Small Knight, roughly the same size as a Big Knight. That's all you really got. A Sonic Knight that can only ally into Emperor's Children? Yeah, the new Knight that came out was sort of a weapon swap, really. There's nothing super special about it. They haven't gone full, this is clearly Wibbly Demon Engine. And they could do that. Just full-on swap one of the arms with tentacles. No, they've already done tentacle arms, but they were metal tentacle arms. Yeah. That would be your way into Dark Mechanicum. Lord of Skulls going to the Chaos Knights? Absolutely. I suppose you could expand it with something like the Lord of Skulls, then do a Tzeentch version, then do a Slaanesh version that's Sonic, then do a Death Guard styled version, or, you know, God related version. So there's a Nurgle Death Guard, not Nurgle Death Guard, Nurgle Chaos Knight. That could work. But if you're going to add Dark Mechanicum, I think rather than trying to do Dark Mechanicum by itself, you're much better off turning the Chaos Knights into Dark Mechanicum. It fits. They're demon engines. They go together. I think that would work. Any other thoughts on the Chaos factions? Because I think I'm about done there. It really all comes down to how they work Chaos Space Marines and how they work Chaos Demons. Remember that at one time, those were the only 2 Chaos factions, and Chaos Demons were in the Chaos Space Marine books, so there was at one time only 1 Chaos faction. They were all together. And now they're split so thinly, I think, and they need each other to work. Remember, there's the Ko-fi link in the description if you want to throw some money at my face. Yeah, you want Chaos God specific codexes rather than Chaos Legion specific codexes? That's what I think they could do next edition. Make it much like Age of Sigmar. They haven't done, was it 8th edition, 9th edition? They did some Space Marine spin-off books for chapters. They were really small books, like the Imperial Guard, Imperial Fists for the Raven Guard. I combined the two there, Imperial Guard and the Raven... You know the Imperial Guard and the Raven Fists? Those two famous chapters? They had really small books. Well, I don't think they could do that really for the Alpha Legion, for the Night Lords. Unless you say the Night Lords kill team. What's that called? Not the Nostroman Reavers. They gave them a fancy little name. They called them... Let me see. Nemesis Claw. Yeah, the Nemesis Claw. Okay, you want to play Mono Legion Night Lords? You got the Nemesis Claw and nothing else. Just a detachment. So I don't think they're ever going to split off those legions from the main Chaos Space Marines, because they are just spreading themselves too thin. The range has expanded since, say, 4th edition, but not by that much. And not for Chaos. Like Chaos Knights sort of functions. It could function with one detachment. Yeah, it could do Warp Talons, but wouldn't say the Word Bearers also want Warp Talons? Night Lord Zangors? Yeah. It's a bird. They love birds and stuff. Oh, that could work. Sure. But I think we're fine just having detachments as a way to represent sub-factions. Because if you're not representing sub-factions with the legions in theme and lore, what are you doing with sub-factions? That's the only way you're going to display it. Could have detachment keywords. Yeah, detachment keywords could work. Although, the way it's working at the moment, the detachments key off unit keywords. If you have this unit keyword, you get bonuses in this detachment. 10th edition's rules are simpler in the number of different things you can be. There's not many unique unit rules, and people want flavor, but they also want to be able to remember their own rules. And so that when their opponent says, my unit does this, does 2 double black flips, and then sets you on fire, they don't want to say, oh yeah, I'm going to have to check that rule and read it, and then we're going to argue over the interpretation of 2 double backflips, because I think you've only done 1 double backflip, because you have to backflip twice for it to be a double backflip. Argue about that for a while. Otherwise, you can just say, oh yeah, the backflip and set people on fire. Yeah, I've seen that in Tyranids and in Tau. Of course, it's fine. Unit keywords to make them work better in different detachments. Oh, so a bit more like the Death Watch, who have the kill team's keyword, which means they can activate within a detachment. Maybe more like that. That could be more like that. Almost done reading 10th edition core book and rushing to finish your army, and we'll talk about the new edition. Well, you have a year. That time is ticking down. You maybe have 11 months, let's say 10 and a half months. Then the new edition will be out. And we won't really care much about the last edition from May onwards. Certainly May onwards. Maybe from March onwards. Go the old world route and have even more universal special rules? And then give a unit 20 of those so you don't know what they do? Yeah, I am finding that with Old World. Great, I have Close Order, and I'm a Horde, and I have Indomitable. Okay, I don't know what any of those do. But yeah. Alright, yeah, Burrows and Vanguard Invaders. Yeah, so you got this detachment works with specific units that have a keyword on their unit card. I see how that works. Detachment should feel more thematic. Yeah, When you go off legions and chapters and regiments, famous regiments, you can do a lot of theming. Otherwise, for the more generic armies like AdMech, they do have different worlds. But what are you going to do? Say one is more, oh yeah, we want to focus on this particular unit. The next one focuses on this particular unit. So one is the servitors, one is the robots. We have that problem with the Genestealer Cult. The cults are very limitedly defined. So we have one that works on the bikers. We have one that works on the aberrants. We have one that works on the metamorphs. It's maybe too specific. So I've been playing more Host of Ascension because I can get something out of all of the units. Right, yeah, Death Guard unit and Nurgle keywords could be different. Yeah, Demon keyword. Make sure you want to get, like, is Mortarion both? Is the Demon Prince of Nurgle both? A Chaos Spawn both? Is a Chaos Spawn a Death Guard Marine or a Death Guard Demon? Debates will now continue. AdMech could do an Explorator detachment that didn't suck. That's an option. I haven't had much thought about the AdMech. We did them last week, and my thought was, make them not bad, just for a change. They were good right at the start of 9th edition, and never again. Right, let's do the aliens. Alien time! Obviously, we're going to start with the Genestealer Cult. There we are. What can we do with the Genestealer Cult? Probably nothing new. It was surprising to get so many characters and bikes in 9th edition. We'll see maybe a Brood Brothers getting a datasheet for all of the detachments. That wouldn't be too crazy. And it has a special keyword so that in the Brood Brothers Auxiliary Detachment, it's a battle line unit. Something like that. It's another kind of infantry, something that isn't just neophytes or acolytes. We then need to differentiate it from neophytes in some way, but they've sort of managed to do that, Games Workshop-wise, with the Imperial Guard, how the Deathcore Krieg are different to the Catachans, and are a little bit different to the Cadians, but not that much different. So you could do something like that. If we go back to points per weapon, then you could put Acolytes with Hand Flamers and Acolytes with Order Pistols back in the same unit. Because the Hand Flamer would cost 1 point per model. Oh, I've got 5 spare points. Great. 5 of my models now have Hand Flamers. Let's go. Then you're not mixing up demo charges as separate to mining weapons, so that if you built your Acolytes exactly like you were meant to in the first Combat Patrol box set, as in the one from 9th edition, the good one, the Hand of the Magos one, that has you build a leader, a generic person, I think it's 2 generic people actually, no cult icon, 1 mining tool, and 1 demo charge. That is no longer a legal loadout. You have to be one or the other. So points per model could work better for the Genestealer Cult. And then if you want an army that's entirely neophytes, because I still have a squad of 10 neophytes that just have autoguns, we wouldn't need to go, oh, I need to get so many more special weapons and put them in. How much are we going to Age of Sigmar 40k? Maybe more. Maybe it will continue. The Age of Sigmar-ing will continue until morale/saves improve. It depends on allies, of course, and how Games Workshop does allies, but you could put Imperial Guard units back into the Genestealer Cult Codex, like in 8th edition. Only some units allowed, or even fewer units than now? It depends how they do it. If they want to have, oh yeah, we have Imperial Guard, you can ally so many units to the Genestealer Cult, or it says in the Genestealer Cult Codex, you can take so many units from the Imperial Guard and use them. I don't like that it's 1 detachment. I feel like I have 6 units that I can rarely ever use. And if I want to use them, I have to play the bad detachment. I can't add a heavy weapon squad or a Lehman Russ to a Host of Ascension army. Ski gloves. Ah. Thank you. You have given me enough money to buy my own combat patrol. That was very, very kind of you. Thank you so very much. Okay. That was awesome of you. Some guard units? Oh, right, okay. So the Genestealer Cult would have some guard units, like how the Agents got some Sisters and got some Grey Knights. I see, I see. That would be a lot like 8th edition, where they were in the Codex, and you had like a Leman Russ, Sentinels, Heavy Weapon Squad, Brood Brother Squad. Yeah. They can be used all of the time. Assuming that, like the Chaos Demons, you have the Nurgle Demons in the Death Guard Codex, they can be played all of the time. And there is one detachment where they get better, where they become the focus. I think that would be a good choice. The issue is, if we don't include all of the Imperial Guard units that you could use this edition, it's gonna suck. What about my Shadow Sword? What do I do? Play Imperial Guard? Have they got me? And now I have to expand that Imperial Guard army I already have that's all wearing pith helmets and red uniforms? Ah, we could have a detachment that opens up more options. That could be fine. Yeah, okay. That's an improvement. That's an improvement. I think there was nothing wrong with the start of the index. 25% of your army could be from the Imperial Guard. I had no problem with that, and I couldn't think of anything super broken coming from that, because you don't have the Genestealer Cult keyword. Of course, if you did this more, the Brood Brothers are in the Codex, then they're going to have the Genestealer Cult keyword. They're going to be Cult Sentinel. They're going to be Cult Leman Russ. Cult Chimera? No, we'll just stick with Cult Truck, probably. Ally units in the Codex is the correct way. That way the units get your army rule instead of a useless army rule. Yeah, I see that. Harlequins should be in the Eldar Codex. Doing Ynnari, Dark Eldar units, there should be more of them, but they can be in the Codex. I don't see why you can't do both. Here's your core Brood Brothers, as it were. Your Sentinels, your Heavy Weapon Squads, your basic, like, 3rd edition Imperial Guard units. Those. And then if you want more, increase the percentage in one detachment. Could we get some Tau cults or Ork cults? The law kind of says no. In the law, the Tau have found a way to remove the Genestealer Cult DNA so that a, like, infected person, their children, won't have the Genestealer Cult first generation DNA. They won't be first generation acolytes. If there was a first generation acolyte breeding with a Tau person, and the first generation acolyte got pregnant, the Tau could make it so that only Tau DNA goes forward, not second generation being born. So it's a weird one. Yeah. And the Orks, because of their spores, there was a case in, I think it was like 1st edition, maybe 2nd edition, there was an Ork special mob that was Genestealer cultified, and they had some, like, all the way down to 4th generation. But because of the spores' way of reproducing, it gets a bit weird as to how Genestealery they end up. I do like the idea of, here's an Ork mech who always wants to make dreadnoughts with 4 claws. That's funny. I like that. You prefer borrowing armies. Ski prefers borrowing armies from other detachments. No, borrowing units from other armies. So Final Day works well by balancing around them working together in that one thing. Ah, yeah. So if we have Imperial Guard units in our Codex, do we also have some Tyranid units? Do we have Lictors? Do we have Von Ryan's Leapers? And then do we have a detachment where they work better? 25% Brood Brother Guards, and then 50% in a select detachment. I'm also fine with that. Then, yeah, you're taking from another army, so they don't work as well. They're not as integrated into your army. But if you go with the one detachment, then they should get army rules and detachment rules and things, and up to 50%. 50% is a good limit. Otherwise, at that point, if it's any more than that, you are playing Imperial Guard with a side of Genestealer. Yeah, this is like a third way of doing it. Ally stuff, I mean. We can have them all together in the army, or we can have them, here is your specialist units, then ally out. But the Genestealer Cult have not been a side lady of the Tyranids for a very long time. Oh, and obviously we'll get a new army rule. It'll be something not like Cult Ambush. Now that they've sorted out Cult Ambush, this time round, last December, now Cult Ambush feels okay to play. Maybe they'll bring back Crossfire as the army rule. I'm very okay with only having one army rule to remember. So if I want to switch armies, I don't have to re-remember 6 different army rules. Maybe can't take characters from Brood Brother armies, but Genestealer Cult character can join their units? Magos in Kazakin. Interesting. Could be fluffy if nothing else. That's a cool bodyguard. I don't know what they're going to do with allies. They could keep it different for every single faction. Or maybe by now they thought, okay, the Space Marine way is the best. Or, okay, the Genestealer Cult 25% allies is the best. Or the Chaos Demons, I hope they don't say that's the best. But they could do something like that. Or you do Army Book of Allies. This is really how allies shape the game. 8th edition allies were incredibly loose. All of the Imperial factions could ally units into one another. I saw a tournament Space Marine army that had 2 scout squads, 2 captains with jump packs, an Imperial Guard platoon just to do actions and hold objectives, and 2 Imperial Knights, or 1 Imperial Knight. And that was weird. That was very weird. Ooh, bring back Chaos Patriarchs and Chaos Rituals. Chaos things. I think that's okay just as a painting theme. Painting your Genestealers up to be chaosy. Yeah, Loyal 32. And the Chaos, was it Disloyal 14 or something? Because you could have 7 traitors. Yeah, 7 traitors from Blackstone Fortress. Plus you could have 4 Beastmen. That's 11. And then you've got Traitor Commissar. No, maybe it's Disloyal 12. It was something along those lines. Just to have a unit in your army that holds objectives, doesn't really do anything special. Yeah, they were a mess for allies. So I'm okay with them saying, you can ally in a certain percentage of your army from these books. Small amount. I like the idea of having the Vanguard Invader units in Genestealer Cult. That's an easy way to expand them. Expand that roster. Now we have Lictors, Von Rhines, Leapers, Gargoyles. Sure, why not? That's great. Yeah, doing Ynnari is weird. Because Ynnari's whole thing... We'll get to Ynnari. We'll talk about Ynnari when we get to Ynnari. I keep thinking the Kelemorph has a cowboy hat. Whenever I look at the model and then look away, I'm like, yep, that guy was definitely wearing a cowboy hat. Right, so what models are we going to get for the Genestealer Cult? I think a new Patriarch and Primus model is to be expected. Because they came out in 2016. They were in like the Brood Coven set. It's a single sprue which has the Patriarch, Primus, and Magos. Separately, the Magos has got its own model. So there are 2 Magos models currently being sold. Please do not give us more characters. There was no need to have the Benefactors. All we wanted was a Magos with an actual working brain gun. That was it. So we wanted new Patriarch and Primus models. That's what I'm expecting. It would be great if in a year's time you could remind me of this and I will at the very least look over my notes. Cult Limo? Get the Cult Limo. That's what we should have. It's a variation on the Goliath truck, but it's a limo. And when we say limo back, it had rules, it never had a model. The models you may have seen were all scratch built. They could do new aberrants or alternate aberrants, but I think those models are relatively recent. Whatever they do, they'll get shoved onto a 40mm base, and no, I'm not going to rebase them. So a mole launcher heavy weapon team. Very much like what the Votann just got there. I don't know if they'll just say that, but for Genestealer Cult. Metamorphs for guns. You could have an aberrant heavy weapons squad. So it would look a bit like an Age of Sigmar Ogren with someone firing a gun on the top. Age of Sigmar Ogre. Because in Cities of Sigmar they have an ogre with a flagpole, and up there is a crow's nest, and there's a sniper in the crow's nest, and that must wobble about absurdly. But something like that. I'm thinking Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Was it Beyond Thunderdome? Where there was a guy, I think they've already made like a corridor model for this, for Necromunda. Big guy with a little guy on the back firing a heavy gun. Special character? Could do special character. Hey, we have the special character from Necromunda. Hermiatus the Reborn. Bring him into 40k. Abhuman Genestealers? We already have Aberrants. I don't know how that's any different from an Aberrant. Oh, what about an Industrial Walker vehicle? Genestealers are cool. And so we could have our own Walker, and there you go. Aha! We have Ripley and the Walker, which is sort of a Sentinel with servo limbs, heavy servo hauler. That had some rules. It still has rules. Yeah, it's Sentinel servo something or other. Yeah, some Sentinel variation that is more clearly working. Yeah, the forklift cage version. This had rules in Imperial Armor, and then they're in Legends right now. Let's see if I can find them. Astra Militarum, Legends PDF. Sentinel Powerlifter. There we go. There we go. Sentinel Powerlifter. It's now a Genestealer Cult thing. It's ours. And it's sort of combat-y. And it can have a little flamer or a little melter gun. Or both. And have the big claws. And it's like a monster, but it's a vehicle, but it shouldn't matter, because Games Workshop should merge those two words. Imperial Train is a Titanic unit? Maybe let's save that for Epic. Feeling it, Genestealers for Maximum Heresy. Hey, that's the way to go. We could have Genestealer horses that look an awful lot like the Krieg horses, but you could have Genestealer plus creature. In Necromunda, we saw there was these little floating tiny things. Can't remember what they were called, but it was like a little eye brain that floated around, and that was infected by the Genestealers, and they had offspring that were even more tentacly and clawy and weird. Maybe a box of 20 Genestealer cultists. Ah, right, okay. So they wouldn't have shotguns, they would just have wrenches. No, I think we're good enough with neophytes as the meat shields. I don't think we need workers rising up, workers rebellion. That is the theme of the army. Acolytes with heavy mining tools, we already have that. Armored JCB? Aren't we thinking a bit more like the Goliath truck or the Goliath rock grinder already? Because a JCB isn't a walker. It's just a tractor. And what, do you have like the scoop has its own special rules? I think that's just a rock grinder. I think we've already got that. But the Genestealer Cult shouldn't just be the allies of the Tyranids anymore. They're cool, they have more of a place in the lore and the expansion of the Fourth Tyrannic War, whereas they were a minor part that appeared in the last few hundred years of the 41st millennium. Now we're playing around in the 42nd millennium. The Genestealer Cult are a real threat, and I like that Games Workshop keeps acknowledging that. I think that's it for Genestealer Cult for now. Right, so let's do Tyranids. The Tyranid range was very much expanded in this edition. There are a few more things they could get, But we've had the addition of big new stuff, and they're not Space Marines, so they're not going to constantly get things. You have to take turns when you're not a Space Marine. So we could have the Red Terror come back, but bigger. Maybe more Trigon-sized, maybe non-emissary-sized, maybe really big Ravener-sized. That's an easy one. Shrikes are also an option. A Tyranid Shrike is a Tyranid warrior with wings. Then they have something that the Warrior Prime with wings that you got at the start of the edition in the Leviathan starter set, in the Combat Patrol. There you go. There is a unit that's suitable for him to lead. Not warriors on foot, not gargoyles. Obviously, they should be Shrikes. New Tyranid Warrior kit, that seems reasonable. Because their last refresh of the Warrior kit, I think was just to put them on 50mm bases, and that's about it. So, new Tyranid Warriors, yeah. Making Carnifexes scary again. You could do a bigger sculpt, a lot like the Space Marine 2 look. That could work. Genestealer Cult Poodle for the noble houses. Maybe we'll leave that to the Genestealer Cult. Because I'm sure that in the sciencey modification, that cult, whose name I can't remember, they will have done some weird stuff with dogs at some point. Genestealer dogs! Let's have Genestealer dogs. Yeah, some of the Tyranid units could do with a refresh. But if we had Tyranid Shrikes, and we could redo the Tyranid Warriors at the same time, and there's a dual kit that you're going to buy multiple times, there you go. Yeah, like we had Raveners and also hyper-adapted Raveners. Both of them exist. So you could have Warriors and also Shrikes, which fly. Was the Morlock in 10th edition? It had rules for sure in 10th edition. It came out in 6th or 7th edition. Twisted Helix, thank you, that's the name of the cult. Thank you very much. That's the Genestealer cult that does weird experiments. More Synapse creature buffs? You could do something with Synapse creatures. If Synapse isn't going to affect leadership anymore, maybe because leadership is not something that applies in 40k anymore, yeah, Synapse is going to be boosts. I have killed all of the big ones in 40k games before, and the Tyranids just keep fighting. There's no instinctive behavior anymore. I really like that, where they're going to overwhelm you. The little ones will overwhelm you unless you shoot the little ones, but if you shoot the little ones, the big ones will get you. So you need to shoot the big ones and take out the Synapse creatures, then the little ones lose coordination, and then you can deal with them bit by bit. So it was, can the Tyranid player protect their big ones, like the Hive Tyrant, like the Zoanthropes, like the Tyranid Warriors? And can you fight them off as a player fighting Tyranids? That was a fun time. Very different game of 40k now. Synapse should mirror guard orders and Tau guidance? Yeah. It should make the whole army better, or at least units in range better while they live. I think that's a fine way of doing it. Here's a boost to the army if you're in Synapse range. Which they sort of have at the moment with +1 strength, we're only in combat. And yeah, I don't know. But something like that is pretty good. The Spore Cyst, the Harpy not being shadow banned. Yeah, if they became... I think there should be helicopter rules, like the Storm Speeders are helicopter types. They're not flyers. Make them more like that. It's okay. I don't know what to do with drop pods and fortifications. I'm not sure. New name Tyranid? I would just bring back the Red Terror, and that'd be it. I don't know if you want to go bigger with the Tyranid creatures. The Hide Rule could get a new kit. A Dominatrix could appear on the field. Non-emissary is probably as big as it should be. I think we have reached the height ceiling of 40k, and I wouldn't want it to go much higher. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. And Synapse range get a buff, Tyranid creatures die. Are there a debuff or deadly demise? I think I'm more okay with the deadly demise thing. If you play Space Marine 2, I know it's a game mechanic within a video game, but if you kill a Tyranid warrior, Hormagaunts around it die. I don't want to impose too many penalties, because when the Tau had their friendship mechanic, and there was a penalty if you didn't shoot at the guided unit, which was like the only army rule to come with a penalty, that wasn't super popular. So it may be the buff only, and removing the Synapse creature removes the benefit. That could be how it works. What do you do with Spore Mines? You could have Spore Mines just as a unit. Or a token. Yeah, maybe make it a token rather than a unit. Yeah, okay. So if you go nearby to this token, it'll explode and hurt you. Yeah, okay, that's an easy one. Like a cherub is a token. Like the Genestealer Cult Reductor Saboteur Demolition Bomb thingy is a token. Okay, good, good. That's how you can do Tyranids. Oh, let's do the Eldar. Right, so they're mostly good. They're very good by themselves. They had a nice range refresh this edition, so I don't think we'll get anything crazy after that. Karandras, obviously, to lead the Striking Scorpions. That model is very, very old. The Harlequins probably shouldn't be split off. Considering how many units they have, and how big armies are, a Harlequin army looks very kind of boring. In, say, 7th edition, when armies were smaller and you could have, like, here's the core of the army, okay, we're done, that's great, it's going to work. Harlequins don't function too well by themselves in this edition. They have 3 units and a couple of characters. So, do they get their own index? That's an option. Then they need to ally into Eldar and Dark Eldar. Or we can stick with a Harlequin detachment. They need a unique character or choreographer as a HQ kind of leader. Otherwise, they just have Troop Master, which is both a unit leader and somehow also the army leader. It's fine as a small army or part of Eldar or Dark Eldar. I don't think the Harlequins need a full refresh. We were expecting something new Harlequin style after the clown hat in the last reveal, where they did a trailer. And 2 weeks ago, it was like, oh, there's a clown hat. Obviously, that's Harlequins. And I think it was like a ghoul semi-jester for the Age of Sigmar ghouls. Really, the real jokers at Games Workshop are putting that on. And the real fools are us for thinking new Harlequins. Exodites, you say? Autarch on a bike? I don't see why you can't do Autarch on a bike. That previously existed, or was it just a Shining Spear model? Yeah, might have been. Might have been. Just a convert a Shining Spear person into an Autarch on a bike. Or was it convert a regular Guardian Jetbike person? I don't think it'd be too difficult to say, here's a kit that can do bits of both. Or have a Skyrunner character, and you swap out like the upper torso to be a Warlock or a Farseer. Ah, right, it was a Finecast model, previously existed. Okay, so it was separate. It was not a Shining Spear. Alright, alright. Yeah, we've said Karandras. Hello, Zerota. Does that mean it's in Legends? I would hope so. Okay, let's find that PDF. Games Workshop website. Downloads. Eldar. No, we have Prince Uriel, we have Karandras. We have Illic Nightspear. We have the Bone Singer. Oh yeah, there it is. Autarch's Guy Runner. Yeah, it's still there. Okay, so it still exists. So hey, bring that model out of Legends. They do that sometimes. They bring models out of Legends. Exodites would be popular, but maybe as a kill team? Or are we doing 2 units? Like one on foot, one mounted on cold ones, but they're not cold ones. They're not old world cold ones, but they basically are. And, we'll have a big laser on a dinosaur. But this is not Slan. We're not doing old world Slan. And Lizardmen, no. These are totally different Exodites. Please don't kitbash. I could see something around Exodites. Something. It's trying to get the theme down that isn't just Eldar riding dinosaurs. Because we've had elves riding dinosaurs in Old World. Maybe, more likely, is in 11th edition they will expand their Corsairs. There was previously in Imperial Armor a Corsair faction. They had generic Corsairs and special Corsairs, and we've seen that a bit in kill teams. But they could be a bit more fleshed out and have Corsair princes, like Prince Uriel, who could get a new model. Uriel? Y-R-I-E-L? Prince 2 Real. A fresh prince, if you wish. It's a new model, so it's a fresh prince. Only the best, most topical 90s jokes here. What other ideas do we have? Harlequin kill team? Yeah, could be. More rumors of an Exodite kill team? Yeah, that's maybe a better way to do it. Redoing the Shadow Spectres? Ooh, they're kind of okay where they are. I don't know if we need to make them like core 40k rather than legends. Wraith bike. It's just a bike that flies by itself. Would you put a Wraith on top of it, or just have the bike flying around alone? You could do less humanoid Wraithbone structures. Maybe. Like the... Or wasn't there something that's like, hey, we're going to put weird souls and stuff? You've got the weird bone people that are not Tomb Kings in Age of Sigmar, and they make weird bone stuff. Like, you're going to be a bone horse now, with your bone dog best friend. Centaur style? Yeah, you could do it Centaur style as a Wraith bike, but would it have to be a jet bike in that case? Oh, that's going to look a little bit weird. Like, do you know the skin? I think Skinwalker in Norse mythology? It's not a centaur. It is a half-man, half-horse creature. It has the torso in the middle of the horse. It's like a human torso and head and arms flailing around in the middle of a horse, and it has no skin. And that's in Norse mythology. So it could be something really messed up like that. Bone Singers are there in Legends, so if you have the Bone Singer model, you can still use them. Prince Uriel multi-part kit? Yeah. That could be good. I don't know if they want to do more multi-part character kits when they can get so much more money, because it's like £25 for one model. So if they did 2 similar but distinct kits as characters, yeah, that could probably be how they do it. Because they'll be like, we can get £50 out of people rather than maybe £25 and they only buy one. Eldar Exiles would be Corsairs, Exodites, Ynnari. Interesting. Yeah. We're back into allies again, aren't we? You want to add the Harlequins into that as well. Oh, that's a weird name. Yeah. I think that's a way of doing it. But you would have to expand those models a bit more through 11th edition. And then after that, okay, we have their own codex. Okay, now we're going to put the Corsairs into there. Oh, and by the way, we're doing Exodites. You have to have the Exodites and the Corsairs come out as kill teams. I mean, more Corsairs. Other Corsairs. And then maybe in 12th edition, you would get that Eldar Exiles army book, which is a bunch of allies. So what do we do with Ynnari? This is always a problem when you have lore and models for a faction, but you can't put that in a way in a box and say, pretend these don't exist without upsetting people. The Ynnari don't have their own army, they're just 3 characters and then they borrow units. They don't really function. They're just one detachment for the Eldar. That's really all they can be at the moment. So no, we're not going to kill the Ynnari. That's why you can't stop Deathwatch armies. It's why you can't cut out Harlequins completely, or remove Kroot. Or it's why there continues to be resistance to removing tactical squads, which they haven't done. Adding any army means supporting them at least with rules, like the Old World Chaos Dwarves. They have rules in Old World. So yeah, Ynnari are doomed to be a soup detachment, but not something that wants to be killed off. This was the expansion of the Eldar lore in 8th edition. That's as far as we got. If you wanted to do things the other way, rather than here's an ally and we go into it, do we have big army books? Like, here's Codex Space Marines, which has all of the Space Marine units, including all of the Divergent units, which you can only use in certain detachments. And we could do Eldar. Merge Eldar and Dark Eldar, and then represent them with different detachments. But we know Games Workshop mostly seems to prefer to split things off, as they've done with the Chaos Cult Monogod Legions. Splitting things off to say, I want my own army rather than my own detachment, even though it's very much the same. You just expand the rules in the detachment. Have a functioning army rule for keyword units, and then have detachment rules. You know, we need access to Phoenix Lords to fit with their lore. Oh yeah, they don't have access to Phoenix Lords. They should have Mogan Ra at least. Right, Dark Eldar is where we get more interesting. Because Dark Eldar have the same things. Oh, we want to add in Corsairs. Oh, we want to add in Harlequins. Do we want to add in Exodites? I don't think so. I don't think they quite mesh together well. Except as sometimes allies. Dark Eldar are most likely to have a range refresh. Oh, Jane Zara unfriended your brain. Oh, that's so sad. Yeah. The Dark Eldar want a range refresh. Like 28mm bases for Kabalites. That'll come. More homunculus things? Yeah. Most of their army is currently sold out online. They are a potential enemy for 11th edition starter sets, as they were the 3rd edition starter set enemy. But scantily clad space elves that torture to keep their souls is not a kid-friendly kind of thing that you would want to then say, hey, new demographic, hey, teenager, do you want naked elves? And your parent is standing right there looking at the naked elves and deciding if you're going to get naked elves? If we had human Aeldari hybrids that look like Guilliman, I think there would just be questions of babies. How do babies work? Titanic flesh golem Wraith Knight thing? That's a giant. That's just a freaky giant. They could do that. So we could have a range refresh at the start of the edition. But we have Chaos Space Marines as a more comically evil. Like Marvel Comics, where the villain is a direct mirror of the good guys. Gooder guys. Or you've got orcs that grin and smash things because that's fun, and adults and children are allowed to do violence within games. You're not allowed to be sexy in games, those are sex games. They're only on Steam and weird downloadable places. But violence is totally fine. Then you don't need to struggle with justifying torture and bondage gear as a uniform. I like the Kabalite models. I don't think they do need a refresh, but they came out in 2011, roughly. Yeah, about then. That was when their models came out. So it's been a while. I think that also means... No, it's a bit after the Grey Knights. So, new Kabalite models just for the sake of it. New Reavers, new Hellions, new Witches. With no special weapons, so no whips, no cool swords, no nets, no gladiatorial combat stuff. Because the current rules don't seem to like them. But you could lean a bit more into the racks, yeah? I have read the Path of the Eldar series. There's a Dark Eldar version. Yeah, I've read those books as well. I've read the Dark Eldar books as well. And then they're trying to get, like, Outer Worlds kind of torture, like cosmic horror kind of torture, like, ooh, I'm going to turn you into a chair and then sit on you. Or, ooh, I'm going to slowly suck out your blood and soul through your little toe, and your toe will grow back and you will slowly lose yourself a toe at a time. It's odd. It's odd. That's when you get, like, that witch that annoyed me is now a hat. And you can see its eyes or its bum hole or whatever you want. Drukhari can't be psychers. Yeah. Bring back the Drakon? Yes. That was a lesser Archon. Kabalite Rangers? We could just have Kabalite Trueborn as somehow kitted out differently from the regular guys. Yeah, they do have the Beast Tamer Man. So you could have a bunch of alien creatures. Beastmaster and more freaky monsters. That can add some variety to the range, yeah. But of course, if we're talking monsters and allies, we want to do more stuff with the Tau. So we'll talk about that next. With the Dark Eldar, they haven't got their Codex yet in 10th edition. That's due later this year before Christmas. So there may be new models happening anyway. That may not be an 11th edition thing. It may just be a 10th edition thing. Alright, Tau, Crisis Battle Suits. They really should go further with the Auxiliars. Have Owlbear, Psyker, Nikazar creatures. Because they're psychic bears. That's the best way of putting them. Really, they're Owlbears. That's the kind of D&D creature they were based on. Have our Guervesa human helpers as a kill team. Put both of those units in a kill team. There you go. You've got 6 to 8 little dudes, all human-y, running around. Some of them have pulse rifles. Some of them have ex-Imperial weaponry. And then you have 2 big owlbears. That's a cool kill team. Then going from kill team into 40k, that's really working for them. Like Games Workshop is doing well off that. Far more than the Versus boxes of 8th edition, which had bigger armies, but unless you really wanted both armies, you were just leaving half of them in the box to eventually give away or try and sell on eBay, same as everyone else. So kill team stuff is working. Just a kill team box, because people will buy a box of a unit. So you can do more stuff with Auxiliars. See how well it's worked for the Kroot. They have Kroot, and then they have Kroot Hounds redone, and then they have Kroot that are mounted. And they have an assortment of Kroot Shapers now, rather than just one Kroot Shaper. You didn't really need lots of them, but there you go. They could do with a new Great Narlock. Big guy. Very popular in the Dawn of War games. You could have a Watercast Envoy character to lead the Auxiliars. Then the Auxiliar units get the greater good if the Watercast Envoy is the Warlord. Otherwise, they can join an Auxiliar unit, and that Auxiliar unit will get better if you had, say, an Athura leading them instead. Leading, like, the army. Yeah, Great Narlock time. Let the Kroot be free? No, I don't think let the Kroot be free, Ski. I think they work better as part of Tau. And I don't think, well, you could just say, hey, I'm going to play something a bit more open. Well, in 11th edition, they need to bring back open play, narrative play, and match play as distinct things. But open play could be alliances are allowed across the board. Then you can have Kroot with Orks. That could be good, even though they were specialized into killing Orks, so the Tau really wanted the Kroot to fight the Orks. Yeah, more auxiliaries other than Kroot. Vespids, I don't know if the Vespids need to expand. I can't see a Vespid vehicle. Vespid heavy crystal weapons? I think we have enough heavy weapons in the Tau already. Vespid Queen? Yeah, maybe. Or like Vespid, I'm trying to think the Alien franchise. There were not leaders. They were not the queens. They were like immature queens. And I'm sure it started with a P. Nope, it's not coming to me. It was like a prime alien thing. You could have something like that. Like a child of the queen that leads the army in battle. But then how do you do the whole Vespids with the mind control thing? You'd have to have all of them be mind control. Yeah, Praetorian, yes, Praetorians. Alien Praetorians, that's what I'm thinking of. Thank you very much. Vespid leader, yeah, I think the problem then is mind control. We can mind control the swarm leader, that's fine. That'll do. Tyranian dog soldiers as a melee-focused breacher unit with guns. We do have Tau breachers already. So I think the Vespid are fine. I think the Kroot are fine. Let's have the Nikazar. Maybe we want our own version of the Votann? Or ally in a Votann unit. Do you want to do a bit more allies? I would love to see a Guervesa unit. Yeah, see them first. The Guervesa and the Nikazar first. Do it as a kill team. No problem. Then we can think about Tyranian dog soldiers and plant people and anything else like that. I don't think the Vespid need to expand though. I don't think the battle suits need to expand. There are enough battle suits. Necrons. So the Necrons should have an updated Deceiver and an updated Nightbringer model, because those models are from like 2004. They also should update the regular Locust Destroyers and the Locust Lord, because those are still using the plastic models with plastic tubes that you stick into the gun. We had a bigger Locust Destroyer already. We'll want a regular Locust Destroyer to be updated. Easy stuff. I think drop the Transcendent Catan and the Tesseract Vault Cube thing. It's too big for a game of regular 40k. I know it's on like the level of Baneblade, but I think this is too big. Just put it in Legends. You don't need to sell it anymore. Because then you're not selling the regular Catan shard, because that came in the Tesseract Vault. So then you can do a new generic Catan with a few arm and weapon options, and if it's a non-epic hero, lots of them can be bought multiple times, and then people will build them with different heads and different spears. People will buy more than one if there's more than one like cool weapon option. That can work. Then the big Tesseract Vault thing, put it in Legends, it's fine over there. So yeah, new Deceiver, new Nightbringer. More Canoptic things? Potentially, I don't know. We've got the new kill team that's very Canoptic. That's about it. Lizardmen auxiliaries for the Tau, that would be the dog soldiers, I think. Which had like laser guns strapped underneath them and punched things because they're crocodile people. They need an update to the Bone Cage Troop Carrier, which is called... you've said the Bone Cage Troop Carrier, and that's all I can think of now is the name. It's called like the Crypty something... Ghost Ark. It's called the Ghost Ark. I don't know if they need a new one of them. It's fine as it is. It also makes the big laser cannon. I think a lot of them are just fine. Just sell a bottle of hot glue for a do-it-yourself Catan. I mean, it's really easy to nicely 3D print something fancy that's a Catan. A little bit floaty. A lot of people available on the 3D market to make something weird. Need a transport that can actually transport our troops and not just warriors. No, the Slith is more like a snake thing than a crocodile thing. Trazen? Just Trazen doing stuff? Trazen still has his model. Does he need a new model? Did he get a new model? Okay, yeah, he could do with a new model. Imhotep? Did Imhotep... Oh no, Trazen the Infinite. Yeah, he could do with a new model. So do we have Imhotep the Stormlord? Should he get a new model as well? We also had Nemesor Vardrek and Man and Anrak the Traveller. Those are people who could get new models. I would like the generic Necron Lord to come back. That was a nice model, and I liked having something in between Overlord and Warriors. Having a Lord there was really nice. Nice to have that. Then you got a whole royal court hierarchy going on. It isn't just Overlord and then friendly scientists or unfriendly scientists of various kinds. 5 different kinds of scientists. We've got Plasmancers and Technomancers and Psychomancers, and now we're getting a Geomancer, and there's a Chronomancer, and they all have pretty distinct models. Have a generic Lord. And I know we also have the Royal Warden. Great. But I would have the generic Lord back. Then you have another person who's leading armies without being an overlord. It's not like the king turns up for every battle. Night Scythe, I think we just do the same kind of thing I've wanted to do with the Flyers. Make them hover all the time. Make them more like a helicopter support vehicle. And that'll do. I don't think we need to try and go back into Flyer territory with new Flyer models and then try and make the rules for Flyers work. Flayed ones could get a rework. Oh, the Flayed ones have had like 4 or 5 different units, like models, over the various editions. I think they're the most remade unit, if not in the Necron army. Well, they may be certainly in the Necron army, if not all of the Games Workshop range. Unless you count all the variations of Tactical Squad, like the Monopose Tactical Squad, and the early Tactical Squad, and the various starter set Tactical Squads, and the Special Edition Tactical Squad. Yeah. Another Flare virus infected unit? You could do more stuff with Destroyer Cults. Although we already have combat version and shooty version, that's usually as far as it goes. More intermediate characters like the Royal Warden. We have a lot of characters already. As long as you count all of the Exomancers, something-omancers. And then you've got Destroyer Lords. You got Overlord with Translocation Shroud, which is a bit different as an Overlord. Scorpeth Lord. There must be a Locust Lord somewhere. Yeah, there's a Locust Lord. I think we're good for that level of character. We don't want everything to have even more characters. So update the Catan and update the Locust Destroyers, and that's about it. Right, the Orks. They have a lot of units that could do with an update. The Orc Knobs seem a bit old. I think they're from like 6th edition, so they could do an update. Do we need Hard Boys or Ard Boys? Because previously Ard Boys were Orc Boys with a 4+ armor save. That was the only real difference. At that point they are just Orc Knobs, which are Orc Boys on foot with a 4+ armor save. Because they all just come with the armor save now. So maybe not Ard Boys, which were in Space Marine 1, the PlayStation game. Mad Boys is an option. They are ones that get a bit too close to the Psychers, and then they go a bit crazy, and they just want to get in there and they die, and they use as funny cannon fodder for the rest of the army. The Gretchen could definitely do with an update, because they seem resin, there's like a plasticky version. Could Looters be a full kill team? I don't see why not. Let's see Looters back. A looted tank? I absolutely want to see a looted tank, and it would look a lot like a Leman Russ, but not be a Leman Russ. Yeah, a Better Boys kit would also be nice. They're selling like 2 versions of the kit, or have been. There was the kit from like 2011, and then there was a more recent kit, which is awkward and monopose, and you have to have the guy with the pickle helm has to have either the heavy stubber like gun or the rocket launcher. What's it? Big shooter, not heavy stubber, big shooter. And you also can have only a certain number of them have to have shooters, and a certain number of the models have to have choppers. And as soon as you're trying to get more than one of the boxes together to try and make a chopper unit, to try and make a shooter boy unit, it looks obvious. They're all monopose looking. This was the problem with the like 2012 6th edition starter set for the cultists. Yeah, as soon as you get more than one of the same model, it's obvious. 3 of them have to take shooters. Yeah, that's not good as a kit. Awkward indeed. How do Orcs do for character models? Well, it depends how you want to count all of the big bosses. You've got your Beast Boss, which is a lot like your War Boss in Mega Armor. You got your War Boss, so there's 3 kinds of War Boss. You got your Beast Boss, buddies on a Squigosaur. You've got Big Mech, you've got Big Mech with Shock Attack Gun, you've got Big Mech in Mega Armor, you've got Big Mech with Custom Force Field. You've got a Deathkiller Wartrike, which is also a kind of War Boss. You've got Gazgul Tharka, who is a War Boss. You've got Generic Mech, you've got Pain Boy and Pain Boss. The Pain Boss is for the Beast Snaggers. You've got a Weird Boy, and then you've also got a Beast Snagger version in the Wur Boy. And then you have Zod Grod Wart Snagger as well. And then you've got also your special characters. You've got your Stealthy Person. You've got your Boss Zagstruck for the flying ones. You've got your Captain Badruk. You've got 4 different red gobos. They're pretty well sorted for characters. I don't think there's any faction I would look at and think, you know, they need more characters. Redo the trucks? I think the trucks are okay as they are. Decent size, got a wrecking ball. I have no real problem with the trucks. You can actually fit models on the back of the trucks. What if they split Orcs similar to the Age of Sigmar Orks? Ooh. I mean, you could if you really wanted, but I hope they don't. Otherwise, oh, you want Squeakhog boys for your orc army? Well, you better be playing entirely the beastie ones. If it's not beast snaggers, yeah, doing beast snaggers alone, you would have beast snagger boys, hunter rig, kill rig, Squeakhog boys. And then like 5 or 6 characters. It's not an army in itself. And I don't think Games Workshop should be splitting off different armies into entirely standalone things. So it's weird that they've done that with Chaos and their gods. Gretchen, definitely new models. Meganobs? Are the Meganobs in plastic at the moment? Which is like a plasticized version of their previous resin/metal models. Do the Meganobs look big enough? Would they be bigger? Would they be on a 50mm base then? Is that a bit awkward? Is that weird? Grot tanks come back? Well, they're not sold anymore, which is the problem. That's obviously what you mean by come back, because they still have rules. They were Imperial Armor rules, now they're Legends rules. So yeah, they could do something like that. Storm Boys, they could do a new Storm Boy thing. A new Weird Boy, yeah, new Looted Tank, new Looters, and new Burner Boys. Meganobs of 2014, interesting. And that's plastic. 2014 plastic. Okay. War Bikers, new regular War Bikers. New Burner Boys. Another Red Gobbo at Christmas? That's inevitable. There's going to be another Red Gobbo. So, for 11th edition, they can do what they've previously done in specializing. So we had a whole Speed Freak release with a lot of vehicles. We've had our Snakebitey Feral Orc Beast Snagger release. So, in the next edition, looting Death Skulls could be a theme. Or we go full Gret Revolution, we have new Gretchen, we have a Grot Tank. Or do both. Why not both? I could see a big Orc refresh coming. Yeah. That's my main thinking for them. They'll be the one that gets the biggest refresh. Not so much the Dark Eldar. Could be Dark Eldar, but they're what we're looking at for the big refreshes. Otherwise, armies that are getting a big refresh, looking along the lines... There'll be new Space Marines for sure, don't worry about it. Imperial Guard, new Katachan stuff. Chaos Space Marines just getting a couple of units. Harlequins maybe getting a change. No, I think it's going to be Dark Eldar and Orks are the main ones that are getting a big change. Yeah, Necrons get a couple of units, but that's about it. Alright, last unit. The Votann. They're already expanding the range of the Votann. We saw that in the previous reveal. We've got tall dwarf something jacks. Not jumping jacks. But it's putting the small guys into big bodies. Steel jacks, thank you. So that's where you got your robots, your kin, they're totally kin, but they also happen to be 8 foot tall. They have another open-topped version of the Sagittor, and I don't know how they managed to make the same tank twice when there's such a small roster already. Yes, it's small. Jump packs from that kill team unit, there was like 2 models with jump packs. They could make them into a unit. A unit of 5 ideally, it could be a unit of 3. They sometimes do that. Dreadnoughts and some sort of jetpack thing. Yeah. So it was surprising when the Sagittor was remade, but it flies now and it's open-topped. They could do... I don't think they'll do something walking. Walking doesn't seem to be their way when they have so many flying units. I know the Space Marines are different and they have their tracked vehicles and their grav vehicles and also dreadnoughts that walk. Exomechs and battle train. You could do a little battle train, but we already have that with the big fortress. The something fortress. All of these names are so either weirdly hard to get your tongue around or they're so much like everything else. A land fortress. Of course it's a land fortress, so it's not a land raider, it's a land fortress. The Exomechs are very much like their Terminator type people. The Hearthguard? Yeah, so that's like... The exosuits are like what the Hearthguard are now. We've already done that. The train, it's gonna be a big train. But they could do a train. I'm just hoping the second Sagittor has different enough rules. Yeah. They could do a dwarf, like an old world dwarf style copter, but the AdMech already have that, and we don't want to have more flyers. So I think we're mostly sorted for Votann. I don't know if you really want a dreadnought thing, something that goes along and punches, like a grudge puncher. Call it that. But no, a jetpack unit should be fine. I think one more unit for 11th edition, that's it for a while. Give them the jetpack unit. Yeah, that is it. That is all of the army stuff. We're done. Nothing more yet to talk about. So I can turn that off now. Oop. Lovely. Oh my goodness, it's 10 o'clock for me. For me at least it's 10 o'clock. And I think we've finished everything we wanted to talk about. Great. Ooh, that's a ping. That's someone else subscribing to the channel. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. We're a little bit off the 20,000. That would be another 20 people need to subscribe. So out of the 74 people still watching, if 20 of you are not subscribed, you should click the subscribe button now. 7 AM for you. Well done for being up, Zerota. It is Saturday tomorrow. Right, so for the last 5 weeks, I want to say, I've done a live stream on Friday. However, I have done all of the things I wanted to do as live streams. So I think next Friday, there won't be another live stream. So yeah. It's not that I hate live streams. It's not that we're done with live streaming at all. I used to do live streaming once a month, then I did it once a week, but I'm running dry of ideas that are great for live streams. There will still be live streams, but more once a month when there's something super cool. Yeah. That's my plan. Otherwise, videos coming up. Definitely a Modeling for Advantage video. Talking about that, because that's been due for a while. And an 11th edition starter box predictions video, which you have helped me with by talking through all of the factions. I have a good idea now. Alright, good. That's me done. Have a wonderful night, or morning, or afternoon, or day. Wherever you are, have a great day of 40k.